You ready?
Oh my goodness. Yes, I missed you. I'm excited to chit chat.
Yeah. Hello, Em. How are you?
I'm good. I missed you. I'm excited to chit chat.
Me too. What a coincidence.
I tried calling you, FaceTiming you yesterday just to say hello.
I know.
You were busy. That's fine.
I know. Okay, I was busy like doing a family game night with my in-laws. I wasn't like busy out on the town or anything.
Mm-hmm. You know what? Busy on Zoom with your family in 2020 and 2021 is a night out on the town.
Okay, that's valid.
Excuse me, you were clubbing it up
I
as far as I'm concerned.
One quiplash, so I think like I had a big night.
You know what? In the Schieferland McNally house, absolutely. That is a wild competition. That's basically the Olympics.
Okay, here comes Gio. Sorry, he keeps inserting himself into the corner. Wait, let me see if we can see him. Oh, there's his butt curtain coming through.
Puppy dog.
He keeps doing that, but then he starts whining because he gets stuck. And I'm like, nobody made you go back there into that corner. Anyway, what are you drinking today?
I'm drinking a nice cup of water.
Me too.
I'm doing it out of my Regina Pizzeria cup. We've discussed this before. Shout out to Boston. I just don't have a bigger cup than this. And I know that I'm going to need to wet my whistle quite a lot. Refill my own mouth. Yes. I'm going to need to drink a lot of water in this episode. To beat you to the punch, I drink because Christine.
Uh-oh.
3 cockroaches I have found.
Oh, I thought you were calling me a cockroach. I'm sorry. You said Christine.
I was talking you, me, and Eva. No, I found 3 more cockroaches after we were done with this.
Where did you find? I don't even want
to
know.
I haven't found any. So I'm very lucky in that I haven't been re-traumatized the same. But Allison found all 3 of them, and she's fucking over it. So we tomorrow are spraying the whole place. So the live show that we have, by the way, is going to be filmed at our And That's Why We Drink studio, because I am not allowed to be here because the cockroach man said that I need to leave.
To be fair, that's probably better because then you're the only one using the internet and stuff. So it might even be
very true. Well, no, Allison has to come with me. No one can be here because they're
tell her to get off the internet.
Tell her she better be watching my fucking show.
Wait a minute. Exactly. Okay. Exactly.
But anyway, I drink because I don't have control, and that gives me anxiety, and I'm angry. What are you drinking? And
wow, why? That's nice. I'm also drinking water because it's only 3 here, and unfortunately, I need to hold off on the booze in it for a couple more hours. But I don't, this is probably jinxing it, but like the weather is beautiful. It's like 65 and sunny today. Or no, not 65.
I'm waiting for 55. A bolt of lightning to fucking crash through the sounds of the microphone.
Oh yeah. And also I drink because Eva just messaged, oh no, is it too late to change your usernames? Because once again, we forgot. So did you see what I did last week?
No, did you call me poopy? Did you call me poopy face again?
No, you were supposed to check on it. Now I'm going to make it even worse.
Oh no! Now wait, hang on.
You didn't even check on my editing prowess.
You know what? We really have forgotten so much about this. I even forgot to look. I have no idea what
because even you said, "Oh, I'm going to re-listen to this since you covered QAnon," and you clearly didn't because you. Didn't
listened to it. I didn't watch it on YouTube. I did. I really did. I was actually very nervous, and Christine and Eva can both vouch for this. I appreciate everyone's kind words about what I've been doing with QAnon and my research, but I have been very paranoid. And so it's nice to know that people are not mad at me, which is fun. So that being said, I'm going to go look at our YouTube right now.
Okay. Well, Jess even posted it on Instagram and you didn't check. Okay. Well, whatever. I just made the most beautiful face at me and now I'm distracted. Wow.
No, I was like, did she? Hang on.
Yeah.
And that's why
she posted it and said, go check what Christine changed M's name to. So it's not
I see what you're saying.
Sneak peek. Anyway, whatever. Your name already on here is changed because I've already gotten mad and done it in the future.
You know, okay. I was going to say if you were to change it right now or something, I wouldn't even notice because my notes are hiding me.
Great.
You know what? I don't know what you wrote. I'm just going to assume I hate you. because I assume the name is very silly on YouTube.
Okay, I changed mine.
Hey, I can see that one.
It says M sucks with 40,000 X's. So, okay, here goes M. Great. Now this is just spiraling out of control as per usual.
Here I go again. What am I gonna say? Christine is La Cucaracha.
Oh no, I'm not the 3 cockroaches in your apartment. Please.
Okay, here's something really funny is I didn't know how to spell cucaracha, so I was gonna write cockroaches, but as I was trying to figure it out, I'd already written
M is or Christine is cockroaches.
I wrote la for la cucaracha, and then I psyched myself out, so I was gonna write la cockroach, but then I got nervous, and in my anxiety, after pausing, I looked back and I'd written Christine is la cock.
Well, you've crossed many lines now, so anything I've called you about a poopy head, you've just, what is it? You literally left it like that? You are such a demon. Jeez. You know what?
Okay, I'll change it.
Okay,
sorry.
Here's the thing.
We're really spiraling already.
Well, what else is new? I also, oh shoot, what was I gonna say? Hang on, let me think.
We've got nothing but time, girl.
Hang on. Oh, I know. Okay, I actually do have a reason why I drink which is that the other night I've started watching Paranormal Witness because a couple people, thanks, I'm your favorite little turd. Great, thank you.
Lil T, you know how I feel about that.
I'm like with Lil P and Lil T.
Lil P has been coming in useful, by the way, with my noisy neighbors. I've been banging them on the ceiling a lot. So
beautiful. So I was glad because at first when he said useful, I was like, please tell me it's not in the toilet.
No, but in terms of soundproofing, it's just in a way we didn't see coming.
It's a soundproofing tool, but not in the way intended. Yeah, I love that.
Just by shutting them up. Okay, sorry. Paranormal Witness.
Yeah, so I've started watching that, which is super spooky, and I watch it on YouTube TV because it's free on there. Have you ever seen this show?
I don't think so.
It's I'm surprised I haven't seen it. It's very creepy. Like it actually scares me. And I was watching it one night and I got like really into it and watched like 5 episodes in a row and I got really spooked. And I was sitting in bed and all of a sudden my bedroom door slammed. Like I'm not kidding. Like it didn't just like close. The whole thing slammed and like Gio and Junie jumped up and were staring and everybody was like on edge. And then I walked over and Moonshine was just sitting there with his fucking paw on the door.
Okay.
And started crying
like
to
he
get
wanted
out.
you to see it. He was like, yeah, I'm the fucking culprit.
He
now
did
what?
it. And then he went, well, I want to get out now. And I was like, well, you fucking did that. Like, what are you doing? And so I realized now that my cat has powers that I didn't realize he had. He can slam doors. It was open. And Blaze's stuff keeps getting moved around. And I was like, oh no, it's a ghost. And one day I was in bed and I saw something out of the corner of my eye and Mooney had jumped onto the counter in the bathroom and carried Blaze's glasses out of the bathroom and
in his mouth
and carried them into the bed and put them behind Blaze's pillow. And I went, oh my God, this cat is literally carrying objects around the house and the other day, one of my slippers went missing. The cat had taken he's still a baby. The cat had taken my slipper and carried it behind a tree in our living room. And it was just hidden there. I don't know. This cat is bonkers. And he likes to put things in his water bowl. He's obsessed with water. So I keep finding screws and like little object sunglasses. He drops them all in the water bowl.
This cat is going to eat a screw one day.
Yeah.
This is what, so we're dog people in this household. And one of the reasons now that I can tack on the list is because apparently none of your items are safe. It's like having a little.
Either with a dog, dogs eat them.
Well, if you put things high enough though, usually, unless you're like your dog like counter surfs or whatever, like cats have access to everything. It's like having I feel like it's akin to having a toddler where you're like, oh, I got to move that before they grab it. I feel like cats can just get anything. Like nothing is safe.
But nobody warned me about this aspect of cats. Like I've had cats my whole life. They've never carried hidden our glasses and slippers. Like this is so next level. I mean,
I feel like this cat is like a reincarnate, like someone who likes to fuck with you. I think this is someone from a past life. Cause that's reaching, but it's also like I've decided it's true that it's probably like a familiar or something who's just like, hey, fuck you.
I know, it's amazing. It feels like a fuck you. And I mean, it's kind of cute when you see it happen. I honestly am just relieved because at first I was like, oh my God, there's a ghost like moving our stuff and slamming doors. And I'm like, okay, if it's the cat, it's so much easier to blame everything, every weird noise, every strange object moving is the cat. There was one night I was watching the show and we all heard footsteps on the stairs, which happens a lot. And I was like, oh, it's Mooney. And then I look over and all three pets are in the bed with me and their ears all go up. And I went, well, cool. So there are still things that happen that I can't blame on Moon. And it's always the stairs. And that's the staircase that Blaze that one time heard and called me like there's someone in our house. So I don't know what's up with the stairs, but you know.
I know what's up with the stairs. Everyone here knows what's up with the stairs. They're fucking haunted, Christine. Are you kidding me? I have no idea what happened. You got them from like a church or something. What are you talking about?
Okay, I didn't. The last people who lived there did. All right.
It's like a weird, like everyone's like collaborating to build a really haunted home. Every new person brings in a new patch of haunted, and it just the next owner's like, how did it get
like
this
a
way?
vortex? Yeah, it's like Zach Bagans' museum, but like unintended, and I don't get paid for people coming over.
But I still have to sign an 11-page fucking waiver to walk into that house.
Okay, that's fair. I will probably set up a waiver. Also, before I forget, so you know how we've been doing why we drink and what we drink again? Some people have gotten a little nostalgic and have asked, hey, why don't you do milkshake and wine facts anymore? And so I came prepared with a milkshake fact for you because it's been so long, and I just thought, why not do something a little like, you know, harken back to the early days.
Harkening. I love that. And to answer people's questions of why don't we do that, you try to find 250 milkshake facts. It gets really hard. But yeah, okay, so you found one.
Part of the problem is that I don't know if we could very well have covered this 200 episodes ago and have completely forgotten.
Okay.
So I'm going to say it again if we did, but I don't think so because I've never heard about this before. So I found this fact. It says the milkshakes in Rhode Island are thought to be called cabinets because people used to keep their blenders in a small wooden cabinet. Rhode Island's cabinets are not like the typical milkshake either. They do not contain ice cream. A cabinet is just milk and flavoring mixed. Okay, well that's not even a milkshake, is it?
So a chocolate milk is a cabinet? So
like chocolate milk? Yeah, I don't know. So I didn't read all the way through until just now.
We were learning together, which is fun.
But a cabinet, that's odd.
I had heard of them being called cabinets, but I didn't know where and I didn't know why. So
Rhode Island is very specific, like very specific. It's not just like New England, it's just Rhode Island.
That's fun. Well, then in that case, Kraft mac and cheese is a cabinet. If I'm just mixing milk and something and that equals a cabinet.
In a blender?
Well, I guess not in a blender.
Ooh, can you imagine? Well, I also want to add, Eva came up with a good point too, that we do have a fun fact, which is I'm going to give you all a sneak peek as to what the monthly milkshake of the month is in our newsletter. And if you want to sign up for our newsletter, it's super fun. Eva said this is like, I haven't gotten a full look at it yet, but Eva said it's her favorite, I think, ever so far. Ooh! So I'm really excited about it.
That's fun.
Yeah, it's great. Jess is doing an awesome job with those. So if you want to sign up, you can go to andthat'swhyyoudrink.com. They're free. It's just comes to your inbox monthly, and Patreon donors get a separate one through Patreon. But the milkshake of the month, because it's Valentine's Day month, is the red velvet milkshake.
Oh, that's fun.
Which sounds that's like my jam. Like that sounds so good.
Allison's a big red velvet fan. I don't care about it. I'm very on the fence.
It doesn't seem like something you'd love. Yeah.
If it's there, I'm gonna absolutely eat it, but I'm not gonna order it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I would order probably 8 of them. But you know,
but that's fun. And a milkshake, and like it gets all like red and swirly, and it reminds me of Portillo's in Chicago, which, by the way, people ask a lot during Marvel Monday or whenever they get their hands on me, they'll ask what my favorite milkshake is, and I would just like to scream into the void for the 1,000th time, Portillo's Chicago, they have the best milkshake because they put a whole fucking slice of cake in their milkshake.
What's the flavor?
It's chocolate, but I imagine you could do the same really easily with this red velvet stuff. If you put a slice of red velvet cake in milk and then maybe like an extra couple drops of red food coloring for like the fun of it, it could get real crazy.
Yeah, or you could just put it in a cabinet if you're in Rhode Island.
You could drink half of it and then leave the rest in a cabinet and just like really get things crazy in your kitchen.
And then
and
get
that's
all
how
the cockroaches involved.
that's how you get the cucarachas. Exactly.
Anyway, well, thank you for listening to my update.
That was fun.
My updated milkshake facts. That was from avivadirectory.com, which Lord knows what that is. But there you go.
Thank you. That made me very happy.
Oh, good.
A hearken
Anyway.
we shall go. I love it.
Oh,
So,
yes, that was exactly what I was thinking.
So now that we've said a lot of things that make us happy, let's say things that make us sad. What do you think?
Fantastic. I'm in.
So, Christine, I am still inside, which means I am doing nothing but looking at screens all day, from my TV to my laptop to iPads to iPhones to, everything. I am just staring. And I've been getting a lot of migraines. I feel like I have a lot of eye strain, and I'm just exposed to so much blue light. And luckily now I don't have to worry about that because we've got Felix Gray.
It makes a huge difference. I also had trouble sleeping because I guess I learned that blue light at night can impact melatonin secretion, which is what regulates sleep. And we weren't built to look at screens all day. I even read books on my tablet. Like, I'm constantly looking at a screen. And thank God for Felix Gray. They're finally a pair of glasses designed for the 21st century. If you go to felixgray.com/drink, you can shop glasses that work as hard as you do. That's FELIXGRAY glasses.com/drink.
Free shipping, free exchanges, 30-day money back guarantee. felixgrayglasses.com/drink. Christine, I am obsessed with Stitch Fix. I've been using Stitch Fix for a long time, and we're finally working with them, and I get this very wonderful box of all these curated clothes just for me, so I look so wanky, and it just brightens my day when I get that shipment.
Oh God, Stitch Fix is amazing. Basically, you try on pieces at home before you buy, you keep what you love, and you return what you don't. Stitch Fix has free shipping, easy returns and exchanges, and a prepaid return envelope is included. It couldn't be easier. You don't have to go to the store. I didn't think I could find a pair of leggings that was like my dream pair of leggings, because that sounds wild, but I found my dream pair of leggings from Stitch Fix, and I now want to wear nothing else. Like, it's like they read your brain and find exactly what you're looking for.
You get to take a quiz, and you get to pick out everything that you would wear, your colors that you like, and
your style,
and all of a sudden it just shows up at your door. Get started today at stitchfix.com/drink, and you'll get 25% off when you keep everything in your fix.
That's stitchfix.com/drink for 25% off when you keep everything in your fix. stitchfix.com/drink.
And this is long again, but this is my final piece.
Look at Gia's face. Sorry. He just started just sticking his head out.
Oh, that's so sweet.
See, now he's stuck again. Now he wants me to move the entire table and the plant and the microphone so he can sneak his way out.
There's a little puppy dog I'm trying to get my eyes on, and I can't find him.
All right. He's out of his corner.
No worries. That was perfect timing because Allison texted me at the same time. So I got to do two
I
things
heard you talking about her.
Oh, you did?
No, she probably heard you talking about her in the milkshakes.
Probably. If you hear a scream, by the way, she found another cockroach. That's how you'll know she's.
Is that what the text was?
No, but she was just texting me about something else. But every time she does text me now, I'm terrified. It's
I see what you're saying. So if we do hear one throughout the episode, that's most likely what's going on. I see.
If you see me scream, and it's not because of your story, it's because of the cockroach too.
Okay. Oh, no.
So here is the finale of my trilogy that is QAnon.
The final installment.
And to give people an idea of the categories we're going through today, because you seem to like them a la Jeopardy last time. Conspiracy theories, what they stem from to begin with, which is a little bit of an add-on from last week about how people get sucked into this stuff.
Right.
And then how did this spread so fast? What ways it is like a cult, and how to help someone get out.
Ways it is like a cult sounds like the most Jeopardy one. Like, ways it's like a cult for 400.
I think you picked it for 400 last time.
I did. I picked it for 200. I decided to up the ante today.
And apologies in case you are someone who likes short episodes. That is not this one. So,
I think like for the last 5 weeks, they've figured out pretty quickly that's out the window.
I know. I want them to know that at least I'm aware. So, okay.
We're very self-aware even when we do stupid things. Yeah.
I try. Look, if it's going to annoy you, I just want to beat you to the punch before I hear about it meanly in a comment one day. It's like, I know it's not great. Okay. So here is conspiracy theories and where they stem from for 100. So just to remind people, and if you are choosing to not listen to the first 2 episodes, bold. But here we are. Conspiracy theories stem from fear, anxiety, mistrust, uncertainty, loneliness, powerlessness, especially during social and or political unrest. And then conspiracy theories help fill the psychological needs for people during those times when they are trying to protect themselves or their worldview, and it helps alleviate their doubts and their fears. AKA conspiracy theories in general, not just QAnon, but one of the main ways that they lure you in is that they come from grasping at straws when you are desperate for an answer to something you can't control. And given the state of the last year, people are looking for a lot of answers about a lot of things that they couldn't control. And there were a lot of straws to pull from, and all those straws became QAnon.
Bummer.
It's such a bummer. So it's another thing that brings a lot of people in. It's just a timeless trait of conspiracy theories, and which can ultimately lead to cults, is that it's the us versus them trope. With QAnon, it's the fear that evil forces will harm innocent people. And if you, without really saying it so directly, if you join us, you will help save the human race. Yikes. Even if the belief doesn't make a lot of sense, it will still offer an explanation for what's happening in the world. So it's just a way to say, like, okay, this, even though this feels chaotic, there's a plan, there's a reason for this, and I can sleep better at night. And I looked into a few different articles on the psychology of conspiracy theories and how people fall into this. And a lot of people, there was one I read from Cambridge that said there are 3 main benefits to conspiracy thinking. And the 3 benefits can be categorized into epistemic, existential, and social. So epistemic, the benefit is that it provides an order to events that you can't control, gives you an explanation. The existential benefit is that it distracts you from social tension because you're focusing on something else.
Okay.
And the social benefit is that it provides you a community to help validate all of your fears. So just to make that easier to swallow or to remember, the 3 main benefits of conspiracy thinking are that they relieve, distract, and validate your anxieties.
Interesting. That's so fascinating. Okay.
Thank you. Oh my God.
It is. I mean, this is one of my favorite series you've ever covered. I say that a lot when you cover things, but this is just so fascinating to me.
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, the articles that I was reading were not in a bad way, but they were just very flowery. And I was like, okay, how do I make this kind of like a bite-sized thing? But if you,
so Christine the cockroach can actually understand what's going on.
So the 3 main benefits are relieving, distracting, and validating. So I mentioned this last time when we had our rousing conversation about anti-Semitism.
Wasn't that fun?
Wasn't that fun? Oh, wow. I've never lost more sleep wondering if I offended somebody.
I remember I was editing the episode, and I just, every time I responded, it was because I was
terrified.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like Em's got this covered, and I'm not gonna insert myself. I'm just gonna like understand and agree and go.
I am Jewish, and in theory, that means that I would be least likely to offend other people in my community or something. But I was terrified that I was not doing it right.
Well, especially because even if you're in the community, it doesn't mean
still say
you
really
are
fucked
like
up things.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you're like totally immune to being respectful. Yeah. I think you did a great job.
I was really hoping people would be like, well, Em's Jewish, so they know what they're talking about. But then that was my fear. I was like, hopefully like people at least could lean into that if I said something offensive. I really hope I didn't, but no, you're right. Like, even if you are
I didn't
Jewish,
even have that benefit. I was just like, I'm going to just sit back and embrace this.
Just because you are Jewish does not mean you can't also have anti-Semitic views. So
right.
No one gets a pass.
Gets a free pass.
So.
Yeah.
So anyway, just like how I mentioned anti-Semitism last time, let's reopen the wound and talk about it again real quick.
Oh, okay. Rousing. Let's re-rouse it. Got it.
Let's get re-roused. Yikes.
Okay.
QAnon wants you to think that these beliefs are new, but they're fucking not. A lot of people are like, this is the conspiracy theory for the ages, and
it's like revolutionary or something.
Yeah, and although that may be true in some ways, it's certainly not because of their beliefs. Like,
right.
It's the same classic fringe beliefs, but with a modern twist. It's basically like the game Telephone.
Sure.
So most conspiracy theories aren't new. They're just, how I wrote it, remixed for this generation.
Remix.
And so remixed for this generation's fears and this generation's unrest. So in this case, it would be human trafficking is a big thing we talk about a lot. So they found the anxiety of this generation and rewrote the same script for a new audience.
Right.
For example, that, talking about global bankers and drinking kids' blood, that's, wow, where have we heard that before? Oh yeah,
unfortunately,
for the last 1,000 fucking years. And so there's a lot of anti-Semitic tropes on blood libel, which I talked about last time.
Mm-hmm.
Also, one of the reasons that QAnon is so alluring and why conspiracy theories in general are alluring is because they will find a way to work off of your emotions. And in this case, they were telling people that kids are being harmed, which is just a timeless way to rally people together because it triggers outrage. It's juicy enough to spread on its own. And with it being vague enough, you can almost write it however
good point.
dramatically you want. So you can, pull on people's vulnerabilities and really sucker them in. Also, when challenged, they will rationalize their worldview and anxieties however they need to make it make sense, which I find ironic because that means this group of people are building themselves a safe space every time they get challenged, which the people who make fun of all of us in our safe spaces and being snowflakes or whatever, the second that there's an inconsistency in their belief system, they'll double down and freak out because psychologically what's happening is they're trying to maintain the safe space they've created for themselves.
That's a good point.
So Freud, who is often, not right. In this case, he is. So he has one theory on errors versus illusions. And an error is a lack of knowledge or poor logic, aka you were wrong because you didn't have the evidence in front of you or you didn't stand corrected when challenged. Illusions or delusions is wishful thinking, very wishful thinking to a point of just complete denial of reality. So that it's a conspiracy theory versus doing your own research when empirical evidence doesn't do anything for you. You're just sticking with what your original claim was.
Yeah.
It's basically, a lot of psychologists have called it motivated reasoning because even if something sounds wild, it makes more sense to them if it means they get to keep accepting the world that they've built for themselves.
Got it. Okay.
And a lot of that comes with like COVID, for example. If you are so afraid of getting COVID, it's a lot easier to just pretend it doesn't exist because then at least you can't get it that way. So there's a lot of projecting involved. There's a lot of finger pointing and like blaming the other. It's like, oh, well, COVID isn't real. You made it up. You made it up because you just want to scare us. It's like, no, COVID's fucking real and you're just afraid to face reality. So what QAnon also ends up doing is justifying projecting your fears on other people, which reinforces an us versus them and just makes the wedge further and further, or the wedge bigger and bigger. So this conspiracy theory, QAnon, what's interesting about this is it's very different than other conspiracy theories that happened before this, especially the ones that were pre-internet. And so I'm just going to say real quick some of the reasons why this has been even more problematic than other conspiracy theories / cults up until now compared to cults before the internet. So first of all, this is kind of a smaller one that I thought of, but I think it deserves to be mentioned because there are people out there exploiting victims of cults. With the internet, public figures can get involved because they want the views or the monetization. So you don't even have to be a believer at this point. If you hear about it and have an audience, you can spread misinformation by accident, and you're also reaping financial benefits from it. Basically, if you fall into people's algorithms, I'm speaking specifically about YouTubers because there have been a lot of people who came from QAnon and have been spreading things specifically through YouTube and video series or things like that. And when it comes to reaping the benefits of QAnon, there's been a lot of talk of people that are spreading these videos or creating this content, they don't even believe in it. They think it's complete bullshit, but they know other people do believe in it and they're working off of that. So
that's like extra fucked up.
Yeah. So like I said last time, and this is not me pointing fingers specifically at these three people, but an example is how some people think that QAnon is one of the three original Redditors who brought it to YouTube. And then there's a group of people who think like, well, they don't even believe in QAnon. They just wanted to pump their own, narrative. And, maybe they're just doing it for numbers or whatever. It's all alleged, but it is something noteworthy to pay attention to, of like, if enough people believe this thing and you want to gain numbers, all you got to do is talk about that thing to those people, whether or not you agree with them.
Totally. You have your audience built in. Yeah.
And because of the algorithm, especially people being at home and using their internet more than ever, and the algorithm being even more accurate much quicker than usual, you're getting, especially with conspiracy theories, it's extra dangerous because your audience comes from the algorithms of multiple people with different interests that can all fall into your audience. So it's not just people that believe in QAnon. It's people like me who are fucking researching it for the benefit of the good, or it's truth seekers, or it's true crime fans, or it's people who have a fascination with cults. A lot of our audience, a lot of our audience who could genuinely be looking up information, not because they're falling into a trap, but because they just want to know about it for the sake of fascination. Yeah. And all of a sudden you're getting videos like this that can slowly seep into your way of thinking.
Totally.
So I just wanted to say that. And I am aware of the really, really, really thick irony here of that, like, I am in some ways a public figure that is in some ways monetizing on us talking about QAnon right now. So when I'm talking about like public figures getting involved, even if they don't believe in it, I hear it. But I would argue that we're trying to educate people away from it versus
I don't know if that's the same thing.
as I was like writing those notes, I was like, oh, this feels kind of gross because like we literally have a podcast and we're talking about this.
That's our whole podcast. I mean, I discuss crime and murder every week.
That's true.
It's just endlessly like talking about horrible things, which technically we do as a career. But I mean, I like to at least think, hopefully it's true, that we do it in a more educational, like awareness type way than like, hey, join us in this.
I like to think so too. I just want to address that I felt a little hypocritical writing it because I was like, I'm almost like shaming public figures for spreading awareness on like random topics, and it's like, okay, well, hello, hi. But yeah, so there are a lot of people who are doing it for nefarious reasons,
right?
And if you are an influencer or a creator, and this is also a PSA to people out there who want to become influencers or creators, and your interest happens to be true crime, and now you want to do a YouTube video about QAnon and you think it's going to be like funny and entertaining because it's about lizard people, you have to be really aware of the message that's coming across and the outreach or the amount of people that you could reach with your video. Because if you think you're just doing a silly little video, but you haven't done your research, you could be spreading misinformation to people who are really taking your video seriously. So it's just another way. It's just one of the ways that the internet has infiltrated this conspiracy theory, because people on purpose or completely inadvertently can be reaching the masses and accidentally sucking them into something that that's not the intention. So I'm sorry for getting on my soapbox there, but that was kind of a half.
You were almost like getting off. You were almost like getting off your soapbox. You were like,
"Oh, okay, good."
I'm gonna step off my soapbox and say, I know what I'm saying.
Well, perfect. If you are a content creator out there and you're like, I'm going to do a QAnon video, this is me urging you to please not sound like QAnon, but do your research, because someone out there is listening and eager to learn more because of your video or your content or whatever it is. So
interesting. Okay.
Quote public figure, if we're calling ourselves that, to other public figures, please just be aware of how you are presenting research.
Sure.
For the safety of the people, because there are a lot of people losing it right now. So one of the ways with the internet is public figures getting involved in, taking advantage of those who are already manipulated into this. Another thing is how radicalized people can become with random content, like even memes. They're easily editable, they're easily shareable within seconds, arguably, depending on what account it's on. Thousands of people can see it right away. It's just like the fastest way to spread content, not memes necessarily, but posting anything. I mean, the way that information is being spread is insane. This isn't a normal conspiracy theory or fringe group where there's 50 people on a plot of land and you just hype each other up. Like, it's not 50 people now. It's
right.
Everybody is getting access to this shit. And within a day, like X amount of people are now looking at this information, and some of them are going to fall for it.
Yeah.
So how it spread so fast beyond the internet, first of all, it already had some traction because of Pizzagate, and QAnon started back in 2017. So I do forget that there are people who have been in this movement for years, but this wasn't necessarily a brand new thing. This was already for years kind of infiltrating Reddit. People were aware of it. There were a bunch of accounts that did talk about it. We just weren't paying attention. And by 2018, which I mentioned last time, in the midterm elections, QAnon was considered mainstream because enough people had kind of rallied together with this belief system. So by 2018, it really started blowing up. And when I say blowing up, I mean Time magazine listed it as one of the 25 most influential people on the internet. It was
like listed Q as, or just
QAnon or Q.
Wow. Okay.
As one of, I would say Q the person. I wrote all my notes in shorthand where Q means Q and QAnon. So I don't remember which one it is, but I would imagine they're talking about Q the person,
the individual,
the top secret clearance
who
guy.
Started all this bullshit. Yeah.
Can you imagine being that Reddit guy in the basement being like, oh my god, Time listed me as one of the top 25?
Yeah, and I can't even say anything.
I can't even brag about it. So anyway, so it's the masses are finding out about it. There was an app that came out called Q Drops, which was just meant to release breadcrumbs in an easier way. It was the #1 popular paid app in entertainment when it first came out. That just in the entertainment section of Apple, it was the #1 most popular, but it was overall, like world popularity, it was number 10. It's been taken down, but this is just to show you like how fast they were really getting into like I mean, Apple was
that's really sobering. Like, #1 in entertainment.
Yeah. And also, this is like I am someone who goes on Reddit, so I'm not trying to like poo-poo on Reddit, but when Reddit has a in my opinion, in a lot of ways, it's got kind of a grimy feel to it, where if you find something on Reddit, I usually think like, oh, well, that's not entirely like a credible source, or there are certain facets of Reddit you got to be careful like who you're talking to or what they're saying, and it's not super reliable. But then it goes from Reddit in 2017 to by a year later, QAnon, like Time magazine, Apple, like people are talking about this shit.
Right.
And so it just goes to show you that it's a reminder that falling for these conspiracy theories and things like that, it's very insidious to a point where it's showing itself in real time in everyday life and you don't see it happening.
Yeah.
So just a reminder that to not shame the victims, because anyone can fall into this. So it already had traction, at least enough that people could find information relatively easily by 2018. And the perfect storm, there's like 4 main ingredients to this horrible recipe. I'm going to get into the 4 spots, but I do really quickly want to say that a summary of what QAnon is. I found 3 really good quotes and I just couldn't pick between them, so I wanted to read them all here before I start breaking things down. But a reminder that we've talked about it in the last few episodes, that QAnon is a compilation of pretty much every conspiracy theory. So if you have a crazy belief, quote, crazy belief, you're likely to fall for it. And everyone's got a crazy belief, so everyone's susceptible and everyone's at risk. So here are 3 really good quotes I found summarizing what QAnon is. If the internet is one big rabbit hole containing infinitely recursive rabbit holes, QAnon has somehow found its way down all of them, gulping up lesser conspiracy theories as it goes. Another one is, the QAnon conspiracy isn't appealing because it's a coherent narrative, but because it's a grab bag of moral panics that have all been squashed together to create a rat king conspiracy.
Wow.
And then the last one is, if you believe anything off the beaten path, you're welcome to the family. So,
wow. Yeah, that is really telling.
Yeah. So it's just, there's a reason in 2017 it was like a post on Reddit, and now it's like we have to worry about the percentage of people who believe in this. Like it's so easy to fall into this.
Yeah.
So because QAnon is such a massive umbrella, it can accommodate almost anyone's weird belief. And one thing that helps QAnon gain followers is that, like I said, everyone has a weird belief and yours has already been justified. They've already found reasons for almost every conspiracy theory to make sense. So if I'm into time travel and I find a group of people who are like, oh, we have evidence for that, and you trust them as a community, you're probably not checking or, looking at your own research. You're just kind of blindly following, and they're giving you answers for how your weird belief is correct.
For your specific interest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's very sinister because there's so many beliefs that not only are you falling into your own faction, but every faction kind of has its own weird fringe extreme beliefs, but they won't lead with that. So if I'm looking at time travel over here, I'm not noticing all these other little conspiracy theories seeping into the folds. And by the time I'm fully invested and I look in the rearview mirror, all of a sudden I have fallen for all these other random beliefs. So it's like a conspiracy theory lasagna where like, and it's also like sleight of hand magic, because you really can be looking at this thing and not even notice that this thing is seeping into your worldview. So by the time you are aware of it, it's too late. Also, I'm just putting this in here really quick. I think it's, I'm not saying this is how it happens, but I imagine at least one person has this quote excuse or reasoning behind why they ended up falling into QAnon. I remember every single person in the last year just being like, it's 2020, like anything could happen and I wouldn't be shocked. Or people being like, it's 2020, you could tell me anything and I'd believe it. And honestly, a lot of weird shit happened that lizard people are like kind of not the craziest. So like it, to me, I'm like, okay, sure, fucking lizard people. I can't be surprised anymore.
I mean, if the things that happened in 2020, if somebody had said, oh, guess what's going to happen next year in 2019, we would be like, okay, lock this person up. Like, yeah, they're losing it. Yeah.
So I think it really was, this isn't even mentioned in like the psychology of how people are getting sucked into QAnon, but it's just a personal note that like we were all so broken by last year. We were really fucking broken as people, and the human mind should not go through the year we fucking went through as a society. And I think that was kind of like half the job was already done, and that
we were like primed for it.
We were so willing to just any answer would fucking do. Like, how did this happen? So
any community, any answer, any explanation,
anyone that was going to validate a theory on how the hell this world is the way it is. And like I'm not saying that was everyone's way of thinking, but I wouldn't be shocked if someone was like, you know what? My reason of how I got into QAnon, it was fucking 2020. I'd be like, okay, that fucking checks out.
Yeah, my life was upside down already,
Yeah. Anyway, there's that. Also, another part to this recipe beyond that it's just like a conglomerate, basically, of conspiracy theories, is that it was a movement that's telling you to do your own research and trust nobody who doubts you, even if they're people in your own group, which like only makes the people who you do trust even stronger with you and reinforces the community. It's ironic to me because I feel like that should tear the community apart, but you're just finding specific people to really latch onto. But whatever your opinion is about anything, it's already going to be validated by somebody. You just have to find the right people to really suck yourself in with. Even if the do your own research quote or concept, even if that meant do the research that I did, not the research you want to do, but do the research I did because, validate my belief. Now you could be, it's just such a wild concept that I've been talking about for 3 fucking weeks with everybody. So I'm sorry, but like, I've never seen a conspiracy theory like this, or from all the research, nobody has, where like the conspiracy theory itself is that everybody but you is wrong unless they agree with you. So if everybody thinks that, then everybody is wrong. No, so you can't trust anybody even in your own group. But that's also the thing that everyone is bonding over, is that we can't trust anyone. Haha, even you. Like it's just wild. So on top of having no ability to trust people, having any of your conspiracy theories being immediately justified, and now having a community that's going to, tell you that all of your opinions are right, whatever that means. Then we've got social media, which I have touched on a lot, but now this is like my real section where I just completely roast social media. So real quick, here is a survey that was done right before the lockdown. I guess QAnon was already had enough traction that they were doing surveys about QAnon before it became an issue. But so there was a Pew Research survey that happened at the beginning of 2020. So before the lockdown, before COVID, before people were really getting sucked into this shit. 3% of Americans said that they had heard or read a lot about QAnon. Only 3%.
Okay.
Within the first 6 months of 2020, so that would be what, June? So 3 months of being locked inside.
Mm-hmm.
After 3 months of being locked inside, there was another Pew Research survey where 47% of Americans had heard of QAnon. What's even worse is that 3 months later, by September 2020, so this is 6 months in lockdown, 25 to 30% of people said that QAnon was partly or mostly true.
Oh my goodness.
Which is a quarter to a third based on the survey you're looking at.
Talk about viral. I mean,
yeah,
spot on.
Or almost a quarter to almost a third. But yeah, so that's no days in lockdown was 3% of people. 3 months in lockdown was 47. And another 3 months in lockdown was a quarter of the world thought it was true. Not just heard of it, but thought part of it was true. Which
so this is the world, not just the US?
Or sorry, Americans. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. I was like, holy cannoli.
They were all American. So that's interesting because it means in the first 3 months of lockdown, almost half of Americans had at least heard of QAnon, but 3 months later, a quarter of Americans kind of believed it.
Wow.
So even though the number is lower, the impact is more serious.
Well, and you have to remember, like in June also, there was so much social unrest that kind of blew up for months, and that probably fed massively, because that's when I started reading about QAnon.
That's so
during
true.
the social unrest.
There were also, I'm just going to say now, there were a lot of other surveys that I planned on sharing the statistics on in this, but to be in it all about people's beliefs in QAnon. To be honest, it was so anxiety inducing that I just didn't include the information because it really made me lose a lot of faith in humanity. Let's just say a horrifying and humiliating amount of people really are so vulnerable to this world.
Yeah.
Which is just my way of coaxing the people who have lost loved ones to this. You are not alone at fucking all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've said this earlier too, but just to remind everybody, in case you don't remember how 2020 went, folks were locked inside. There was nothing to do during what I consider one of modern history's most stressful times. People were confused. People were scared. People needed social interaction. People were spending all fucking day on social media, more than they used to. And they were just getting royally fucked by these insidious algorithms, like royally fucked. And then they were, through those algorithms, they were spiraling downward a rabbit hole that they could not climb out of, especially when a lot of them were digitally illiterate, like baby boomers who thought they were properly fact checking or thought they knew how the algorithms were working and how they could get out of those algorithms. And so a lot of people just got, I mean, you didn't stand a chance, basically. If you looked up one video about it and it's in your algorithm and you don't really know how to like shift gears and look at other content for a little bit to change up your platform's algorithm, you're fucked. There were panicked people. This is most of the people who got sucked into QAnon first. They were really panicked, especially about COVID, but because COVID was so new, there was no information yet. So experts didn't have answers, at least answers people wanted to hear. And it truly, I can attest to this, felt like it was the end of the fucking world when this all started. When people were looking for answers, the only answers that they could really find were on social media from uncredible sources because actual scientists were busy getting the real information for you. And I would also argue, by the way, that a lot of experts were working day and night to get you information as soon as possible, but it wasn't fast enough for people to feel like they were
it wasn't being disseminated properly by the powers that be.
Perfect. Okay, you get it. Yes. So when looking for answers, they would end up on social media. A lot of those ended up becoming QAnon accounts, and it just got spread really quickly to people's algorithms because, like I said last week, you could, and I said also just now too, if you believe anything, QAnon is subtle and vague enough that it can slip into any belief. So even people our age are now being affected by it because they're part of like New Age or energy pages and energy accounts and, more of the woo-woo stuff, the granola stuff. If you're into also conspiracy theories, or if you're into even something as simple as like crystals and things like that. Like, it's so easy for someone who kind of believes in fringe QAnon stuff to just show up on your page, and then you're screwed. People were getting QAnon information from everywhere, whether that was Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, many alt-right apps. So like Parler and Gab are talking about that stuff. And eventually it's just hard to not pay attention to, because even if something sounded kind of fringe and extreme to you on one page, it's just like psychology, like the proximity effect of if you see it enough times, out of sheer curiosity, you're going to kind of look at it. And then eventually the internet thinks that's what you like to look at, and then it's all you're being shown. So it's hard to not pay attention over time, especially when you've got nothing to do but look at the internet and just see what's going on. Basically by March 2020 and the lockdown, there was an immediate massive spike in Facebook numbers to QAnon accounts. I saw one poll that said QAnon accounts, there were originally 200,000 searches or 200,000 follows or people hits. Within that month, it went from 200,000 to 1.5 million.
Ooh, boy.
Another quote, I think this one was about Instagram. This was Facebook. In just 4 months, membership of the biggest public QAnon groups rose by 700%.
Oh my goodness.
Also, QAnon activity nearly tripled on Facebook. It nearly doubled on Instagram and Twitter. A lot of this, not only were we all inside looking for answers, people were on Reddit for even more hours than they were before, and algorithms were catching up. But on top of all of that, when people were inside, a documentary showed up on YouTube. I think it was on YouTube, that reintroduced us to Pizzagate, which is, and that was in April. And by June was when Pizzagate became this like huge, massive thing all over again. So now we're just reopening that wound while everyone's bored inside and doom scrolling, basically.
Yeah.
While we've been inside, my hair has been growing like a weed, and I have really wanted to focus on some parts of my hair that I don't usually focus on, especially now that there's more of it, and I want it to be lush and moisturized, and I usually have a dry scalp. Thankfully, we've got Function of Beauty, so I have been able to customize my hair experience.
And it's amazing because not only can you customize like what goals you have, which mine are basically the flipped opposite of everything you just listed, just for fun fact, but you can also customize the scent. I finally switched from the peach to the pear, which I also love. Both amazing.
Too.
Oh, the pear is so nice.
The pear is something else.
And the colors, I mean, you can pick your color. It feels so customizable. And my name, I put X-teen on the bottle. It's super cute. Every ingredient Function of Beauty uses is vegan and cruelty free. They never use sulfates or parabens, and you can go completely silicone free if you want.
Never buy off the shelf just to be disappointed ever again. Go to functionofbeauty.com/drink to take your quiz and save 20% on your first order. That applies to their full range of customized hair, skin, and body products.
Go to functionofbeauty.com/drink to let them know we sent you and to get 20% off your order. functionofbeauty.com/drink. Whether you're an early bird like neither of us, or you like to hit the snooze button like both of us, everyone deserves to sleep in ultimate comfort that starts with your comforter. Brooklinen can help you get your best sleep like they do for us.
Brooklinen creates beautiful, high-quality bedding and home essentials, and they work directly with manufacturers to give you a fair price with no middlemen, no markups. I can tell you, if I were to rip the blankets right off of my bed and show you my delightful as ever sheets, you'd be like, oh, what is that about? And I'd be like, oh, it's Brooklinen. Don't worry about it. It's just the cutest thing I've ever seen.
And their comforters actually come in lightweight all season and ultra warm. They suit every type of sleeper and lifestyle. There's even a weighted comforter option, which is my next plan. And they offer a variety of materials, including an eco-friendly recycled down alternative.
Treat yourself to ultimate comfort with Brooklinen's comforter collection. Go to brooklinen.com and use promo code ATWWD to get $25 off with a minimum purchase of $100.
That's BROOKLINEN.com and enter promo code ATWWD for $25 off with a minimum purchase of $100. That's brooklinen.com, promo code ATWWD.
So by June 2020, hashtag Pizzagate on TikTok apparently was, quote, viewed more than 82 million times.
Oh my gosh.
And so another quote is, in the first week of June, comments, likes, and shares of Pizzagate also spiked to more than 800,000 on Facebook. and nearly 600,000 on Instagram, which is interesting because when Pizzagate was at its actual peak in 2016, Pizzagate only like comments, likes, and shares only got to 93,000. And
wow.
So in 2016, it got 93,000 hits. In 2020, when it got reopened and everyone was inside, Pizzagate went from 93,000 hits to spiking to 600,000.
Wow. So it really took off the second time around. Man.
Second time around, it was more popular, even though I'm sure that poor fucking pizza place was like, I thought we were done with this.
I thought we had brushed that, finally put that behind us.
Also, there were 2 videos that also came out during the pandemic that really spread QAnon information. One was called Plandemic, aka the pandemic is a plan and a hoax and a setup. The other was Fall Cabal, which was a 10-part video series that I'm pretty sure was like an intro into QAnon. And I never saw it. I tried to find it. Honestly, I just didn't want to watch 10 fucking videos on this.
No?
That's no. But I'm assuming it was kind of like a QAnon 101 and it kind of like slowly got you involved in all of this. So anyway, those 2 were very powerful. I would say if you're a QAnon family or you have a QAnon belief system, those are like household names now, those 2 videos. Okay. That's what I'm gathering. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but it felt like that because a lot of people talked about those 2 videos and how it helped them get involved. And it got to a point where once people were realizing how dangerous QAnon is, representatives for these platforms were saying that they were going to start removing accounts, and they were more or less on it. I have quite an opinion on this just because I think I'm primed to be angry. I want to be angry at somebody because of how dangerous QAnon got. But so I want to blame social media for not doing something about it. But then there's like, what could they have done? Like without there really being like some sort of,
well, Facebook's in huge trouble about that still.
Right. And it's a weird controversial topic in that like, I don't want to suggest that like, I'm not for freedom of speech, but at the same time, like there should have been policy, in my opinion, there should have been policy set in place a lot earlier. And
I mean, it's one thing to let people freedom of speech. It's another thing to say like you're spreading dangerous and false news presented as news media that is harming people. I mean,
and I'm just super sensitive to it because I literally have been reading this shit for almost a month now, nonstop. So I'm just like, how did nobody fucking do something about this? And I would, from what I saw, from what I read, I feel comfortable saying that I feel like a lot of these social media platforms were very reluctant to do anything about it until it was too late. And so I just like don't want like any like someone to fucking sue me, but I feel like there.
I mean, I think this is a hugely popular belief now that like Mark Zuckerberg fucked us all with his like refusal to act or do anything.
Right, and I would definitely blame Mark Zuckerberg. I also would say everybody is accountable in some way and didn't nail it on the first try. You could make a claim about any social media platform that they didn't do enough fast enough, but they are starting to finally change their policies. They have banned certain accounts. One of the policies that they put in place was that they would change up the algorithm so that they wouldn't necessarily show you. They weren't taking down the videos, but they were rerouting your algorithms to show you different content.
Okay. I mean, this is how I think about it. On Instagram, you're not allowed to post a picture of a boob. If you're breastfeeding, you can't show a nipple. That's not allowed. That's immediately banned. Your account can be banned. And yet like, it's freedom of speech if you're posting about like how, any of this above anti-Semitism and you know what I mean? Like, I just think it's bullshit when people are like, it's freedom of speech. And it's like, but then you show someone breastfeeding or just even somebody's boobs or menstrual blood. And people are like, oh God, how can you show this to children? It's like, well, look what you're showing to children. Anyway, that's my rant.
Christine 3:16 is what that Bible verse was in case you need to check back. But no, you were absolutely right. I think there is a lot of hypocrisy in terms of what is censored and what is not.
Totally.
And thank you, I guess, social media for doing something about it now, kind of, but I'm still not super duper pleased, especially because before they started setting these policies, which is super duper recent, compared to what it should have been. These algorithms, Trevor Noah did a really good bit about this too, where he was saying that the algorithms were only a few clicks away. Like he didn't say this number, but you could pretty much guess around like 5 clicks into video going down the rabbit hole, you ended up on QAnon content.
Wow.
And so just because the way that he phrased it was like, if you're into alternate health, maybe you're anti-vax. If you're anti-vax, maybe you're conservative. If you're conservative, maybe you're into Trump. If you're into Trump, here's some QAnon information. So it like so fucking quickly within an afternoon, all of a sudden you're on QAnon content. And I mean, that happened with that one woman I mentioned last time, who she's an ex-QAnon member, and she got in because she was into energies and crystals and frequencies. And she clicked on a page that said, you might like the Great Awakening. And
Yikes.
it's how easy is that? So because everyone has niche interests and QAnon is so varied already, anyone can fall in. It's really easy for the algorithm to access a lot of people all at once. And extremism experts actually are shocked at how fast people are getting radicalized. Even like with like the knowledge of what the internet is, they're still shocked at how fast people are getting radicalized. Since everybody was one of the big reasons, I think, and how this shows itself as very culty, or how maybe even this could have just been a fringe conspiracy theory. And I think what made it culty is that it is social media and the internet. I think that might have been the real kick in the crotch it needed, I guess, as I'm going to call it. Because during this pandemic, I think the pandemic plus social media was the real firestorm here, because everybody was already physically isolated from their social circles while they were learning about this stuff. And half the job of a cult is fucking done. You're already not near people.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, you've got FaceTime and you've got texting and all this, but you're not doing your regular, hey, let's go to brunch. Oh, by the way, I saw this thing on the internet. You didn't have people consistently taking you off of the QAnon ledge.
Sure.
Like they normally would.
Or like any sort of rationalizing or pulling it back.
By the time you were telling people about it, you hadn't seen them in months. Let's just put it that way. Or you're texting or you catch up every now and then, but like you're not sitting down with people face to face and saying, this is what I'm starting to believe. What do you think about that?
What do you think? Right. Exactly.
And also, let's just be clear. You, me, everyone that probably listens to this, at least a very large majority of people who listen to this, suffer from either depression and or anxiety. And I would guess that a lot of people who listen to this show who deal with that, like you and I do, have also experienced when you are depressed or when you have anxiety, you fucking don't talk to anybody. You just shut people out. You don't text people back. You don't, it's really hard to find the social energy or the mental energy to socialize. And if you're inside and your only way of interacting with other people is through FaceTime and all this, and you're too depressed because of how the world is going, you're not reaching out to anybody. I'm telling you, if we didn't have the podcast, I wouldn't have texted you during this pandemic. And it's nothing against you. It's just, I'm too fucking depressed. I'm like so miserable.
I don't even get on a phone to call my doctor, let alone like talk to people. Yeah.
My own best friends back at home, I barely talk to them. And it's just because I have secluded myself. And so even if you are talking to,
and like, what are you going to talk about? You have a phone call and it's like, well, how are you dealing with the pandemic? Same old. I mean, it ends up just being like another draining bummer.
Exactly.
Like, what are you doing? You can't talk about your vacation to Bali.
So exactly. So my argument, or the point I'm leading to, but I am tangenting, I guess, is that even if you aren't seeing people for brunch and catching up with them, and that's how they can talk you off the ledge, one big argument could be, well, you can still text people and FaceTime them. And this argument is me being like, buddy, I still don't fucking do that. So like, if I were secluded by myself and this is all I'm fucking reading, and I'm isolated, I'm completely alienated from people, whether or not I even meant for it to happen.
Right.
And now I have this whole wild belief system that now when I catch up with my friend and they're like, whoa, you sound a little crazy all of a sudden, it's very easy to kick them out because you weren't talking to them anyway.
Right.
So
right. Or like they don't get it like my online friends get it. I mean,
exactly. So I hope I didn't offend anybody with my jibber jabber about, depression and anxiety, but I would like to think a lot of people
self-isolating is very common. Yeah.
I would like to think a lot of people have been in our shoes before and experienced something like that. So that just goes against the argument of like, you're still not socializing, even with the very few resources we currently have. So
exactly.
So anyway, between there being all the social media, no interaction with people, at least in my case, there wouldn't be any interaction with fucking people. When you combine the accuracy of social algorithms, us being inside all day, completely secluding ourselves from people who aren't falling for the same media or information, people are becoming radicalized literally within weeks. So I talked about this in the first episode that I covered on QAnon. And I talked about this woman named Jessica Prim.
Right.
And she was one of the crimes that QAnon has come to be responsible for. Jessica Prim live streamed her arrest. She was looking for a Navy hospital ship that she thought was where a bunch of like trafficked children were being held, or
Oof.
something like that. And she also kind of she brought knives with her, I guess, to like defend herself or like get the kids out however she needed to. Basically, she ended up getting arrested. People looked back at her posts, and there were threats about Hillary Clinton and Biden. And because she was fully radicalized, thinking that she was going to be this lone wolf vigilante who was going to go save these children off of a ship. And she was the one who was screaming at the cops the whole time about like, have you heard about the kids? I need to wake up, and all this stuff.
Right. Yikes. Goose Cam.
So there was a West Point study done on her. And from her first interaction with QAnon material online, whether that was like the first post she saw or the first page she joined or whatever, from that to her being fully radicalized was 20 days.
Oh, so from that to this crime was 20 days?
Yeah. So
wow.
from her just like being on Facebook and like joining a group like The Great Awakening to showing up on a Navy pier about to stab people to save children from a human trafficking ship. 20 days.
That is unsettling.
So I will add the caveat. I don't know anything else about her. There could have been mental illness involved. There could have been something. This is a one person study. So I don't know if there were any other influences that caused this. But it didn't sound like that. It sounded like everyone who knew her before was like, what the fuck happened to her? This is not what we're used to. I don't know enough about it to make a clear opinion. I will just say from what the study says, it is shocking. And so after the skyrocket in QAnon popularity, I talked about a Vice documentary I watched. I think it's actually a multi-part series. I only watched one video though, but they spoke to Angelo Caruso, who is the president of a media watchdog nonprofit, and they have been tracking QAnon since the beginning. And the filmmakers asked Angelo, they were like, so what do you think, how many people do you think QAnon has influenced lately? Like what do you think the most recent number is? And he said he's the literal president of this company that has been watching QAnon since the beginning. And he said, quote, overall, I would put it at about 10 to 15% of the population, which is 33 to 50 million people.
And what is that number he's saying is
those are the people that have been affected by QAnon. So that doesn't mean they're completely like, I believe in lizard people extremists, but they at least have their foot in the door. I'm assuming they at least have their foot in the door into QAnon or have been touched in some way by QAnon. He said 10 to 15% of the population, which would be 33 to 50 million, which is a ballpark guesstimate from the filmmakers before they even spoke to him. They thought it was somewhere around 30 million. And for him to say 10 to 15%, and it's even more than 30 million, is just wild.
How many million is it again? Sorry.
So in the US, I looked it up last night to double check. It was like 328 million, 329 million. And according to this guy who's in charge of the media watchdog company, 33 to 50 million people.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So
scary.
Pretty terrifying. So here are the political consequences. We could really get into this, but it's going to be shorter than you think. So the notion that conspiracy thinkers could gain significant political power is sadly not new. All the way back to like the 1800s, people who were first joining the Freemasons thought that the Freemasons would rule the world one day, or already did rule the world, and they were just finding out about it. And that year, the Freemasons actually gained 10% of the House of Representatives. So
boy, oh boy.
It's just yeah, it was forever ago, but it's just to prove that history repeats itself, and all you need is numbers, and things start to change, power starts to get shifted. So it's very reasonable to be worried that QAnon followers could gain significant political power in the future, especially since some of those followers already have as of this last election. The big one people have been talking about is Marjorie Taylor Greene, who won the House seat in Georgia, who, yikes. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to fucking say. So many other candidates in this last election either like posted QAnon content, commented on QAnon content, just flat out fucking said they were for QAnon. Like a shocking amount of people. Not saying all of them ended up winning spaces in the last election, but it's enough people who were running felt emboldened enough to not be shy about it. Anyway, I mean, they were literally getting endorsed by literal politicians and shit, this QAnon group. So anyway, when Trump and his circle continued to not denounce QAnon, but instead give it supportive remarks or kind of flirt with the idea that they're real and he's for it, or he was following and retweeting and liking posts, his own campaign pictures, there was some QAnon propaganda in there. And there was another media monitoring group called Media Matters for America. And they said that Trump's reelection actually, I don't know why this is surprising to me, but Trump's reelection relied on a lot of QAnon socials on social platforms to do a lot of fear mongering and spreading the good news, if you will, of what QAnon is. This is a quote that says, "What happens when a nation's leader is conspiratorial? People who are susceptible to conspiracy theories become manipulated and go into overdrive because a person in power finally represents them," which is what makes this so dangerous, because the more people with political power that feel free and safe of consequence to announce that QAnon is fucking real, all it's going to do is take all these other QAnon people and be like, well, they said it's okay. And, look how far they are. No one would take them seriously if they weren't telling the truth. So anyway, it just makes all of QAnon think that all their work is doing is worth it. They really are saving the world, because look at how high they're climbing in rank. Some people now, actually, a lot of ex-QAnon followers have said that if Trump had condemned QAnon, they would have gotten out, which is pretty telling.
That blows.
That's just an argument for people who are saying the shitty comments of like, well, Trump didn't make QAnon do anything. They're their own people.
I hate that. It's such a bullshit argument. And
it's like saying like, oh, well, the cult members could have left. The cult leader didn't make them stay.
Exactly. It's like saying, oh, someone could have left an abusive relationship because, I mean, that's an extreme, but you know, I hate that same argument of like,
why didn't you get out?
Yeah. Like, why didn't they have the power to? It's like, you're ignoring the bigger issue of someone else is manipulating.
Yeah, exactly. And just in case anyone out there wants to challenge me on this, I'm not saying Trump is a cult leader, but I am saying a cult thinks Trump is their leader. So let's
and he's not saying he's not their leader.
And he's not saying he's not. So somehow those things are different, but I just want to reiterate. So anyway, a lot of people have said, yeah, if he condemned QAnon, maybe they wouldn't have left, but it would have certainly been a wake-up call, because at least the person that they think is doing all this stuff behind the scenes saying, no, that's not true, they would have at least been a little rattled. Then again, a lot of people would have doubled down and been like, oh, that's what they want him to say.
Forced to say that.
Yeah. Or like there's a code in there somewhere. All this.
And I also just want to say, I'm not like comparing QAnon members to abuse victims. Like,
no, I did not.
There's a lot of it's responsibility when you join something like QAnon. So I'm not saying like, oh, that's the same difference. I guess I was just comparing the argument of ignoring like a bigger aspect of the problem.
I did not read it that way. I got
I don't want to get in trouble.
No, I think there's the same narrative gets shoved into all of those situations, no matter how similar or not similar they are.
Right.
There's always some critic who's like, well, why didn't they leave? And the answer to that is fuck you. That's the answer. Right. I mean, okay, just to reiterate, Trump told them to be wary of the government, to not trust the media, the election's a fraud. All these people he's telling that to already think he's their savior and is going to save the world. Yeesh. So like, he's just like left and right empowering them. Let's not fucking forget the Capitol, where he incited violence from a whole group of people who were already vulnerable, already angry, already wanting to do something about it and just waiting for the green light.
Yep.
And many people at the storming of the Capitol were part of QAnon. You could see it on their signs, on their clothes. Let's remember that fucking Auschwitz shirt that people were wearing, which does have something to do with QAnon. Please listen to episode 2 of QAnon. One of the people there that everyone saw on the internet, who is a member of QAnon, is that shaman dude, which wow is such a fucking insult to shamans.
Yeah.
He is calling himself the shaman something.
Right.
I'm not thinking that that's what he is. And also, in case you missed it, I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but a lot of QAnon followers also, one of the reasons they felt like they could go to the Capitol, or they can say all these things, or they can join Congress and do whatever they fucking want, is because they think they are free from the law, because one of their crazy faction theories, sorry, I should have not said crazy, one of their bananas theories is that in 1871, there was a law that turned the US technically into a corporation instead of a federal government. And therefore, any laws that were passed after that year are moot, because technicality wise, it's
okay.
And so they think, since they don't have to follow any of the rules that have been around since 1871, they can just do whatever the fuck they want. And so it gives them a reason to, if they're not happy with how things are, do some vigilante work for the sake of all good. Anyway, so the aftermath of Trump is that a lot of folks, some of who were in Congress, because of all of his words, like the election was a fraud, don't trust that Biden is, or he didn't say that, don't trust Biden as president, that's what they think, but the election is a fraud, don't trust the media, all this stuff. Him saying that has not only done damage to the people currently in QAnon, but just how that is going to spread throughout time now. Trump has certainly left a legacy now, in that he has almost approved the next several generations having to rebuild trust in media and government and all these things, because there's now a huge faction of people, a staggering percentage of people, who believe him and now don't trust the government. Now they're going to probably invalidate every time there's a new president, unless it's the one they fucking want. I don't know. But so anyway, he enabled a lot of people to not trust the government, to deny Biden, to ignore the administration, to incite violence, or to incite vigilante justice, at least. And it's going to take a long time for people to break away from that thinking that he told them was correct. I mean, imagine your God, because to some people he is the savior. Imagine your God telling you, oh, everything you think is right and everyone that's judging you for it is wrong. And then now you're stuck in this world. And for the next several, I imagine, generations, you have to somehow wrangle yourself out of thinking that,
now it's your responsibility to do something about it. And open the sheeple's eyes.
Exactly. So, I mean, he just basically lit a fucking match and walked away. And so Travis View, who I mentioned in the last 2 episodes, who I'm very terrified of not doing justice in my
the podcaster
research, his podcast, and there's 2 other people in that podcast. They're called QAnon Anonymous. Super excellent. Please go listen to them if you are fascinated and want to learn more. One of his quotes about the now, I suppose, legacy, yikes, of what QAnon has left. Travis said, "This is something that will be with us for at least a generation and probably longer," which is awful. And just to remind everybody, in 2020, the FBI did say that QAnon poses a domestic terror threat. So at least it's official.
Finally, somebody said it right.
At least, but that's also, I'm pretty sure, the first time a conspiracy theory has become a fucking domestic terror threat. I don't know. I think that's the first time. It feels like that's the right information that I'm telling you. Okay. Anyway, so here we go on ways it's like a cult for 400. Ding, ding, ding. So experts have classified QAnon's audience as comparable to religious cults. I don't know if anyone has just said, oh yeah, it's a fucking cult. I'm not sure about that. I have, but I'm not an expert. Some people claim that it's not really a cult yet. It's more of a conspiratorial groupthink or a quasi-religious worldview because of its its similarities to extreme groups.
Sure.
I feel like that's all really dancing around what we all think, or at least what I think, and it's that we're really flirting with trying to not say cult. That's what I'm thinking. It's at least how it feels to me. So again, all of this is alleged. This is all my opinions. Usually we are very, very, very neutral, or try to be, and not express our opinions. But after 3 episodes, I would say 100 hours of research, I'm so fucking over this. And I'm sorry that this is not proper journalism right now, but I don't know how to not think it's a cult after extremist experts are really shocked, and everyone who is dealing with this, who have lost loved ones, people who have left the group, are all saying. So
what's like, why would it not be a cult? Like, what's the definition of a cult that would make it any different from that, like, according to experts?
So I looked everywhere. That's actually, you know, in a way, it's an answer to the question I don't think you were expecting, but I looked everywhere for conspiracy theory versus cult. I just typed that in.
Okay.
And all that popped up, I didn't mention QAnon, all that popped up were pages about QAnon.
Oh, wow.
So I don't even know if there's an official, is there an official? I feel like at one point,
I just looked up cult. It basically says, like, I wonder if it's too broad to be a cult. Do you know what I mean? Like, because they all have different levels of belief. I'm not sure.
Because I would say a conspiracy theory if I were to define it, and this could be totally fucking wrong, but I would say a conspiracy theory is when you have some fringe beliefs and you're not alone. There's a group of you that all kind of follow these little pieces of information that confirm for you this belief that you have, but you're aware that it's not really for everyone. It's like a niche interest.
Sure.
And for me, and I'm sure there's a more extreme or less extreme, depending on who you are, definition of that. But what makes it different to me from a cult is that a cult, there is a following where I actually wrote my version of how this becomes a cult.
Okay.
In here. But just to answer the question, a quick difference between it is that you're not losing money, losing family, losing sanity, losing relationships, losing your reputation. For me, a conspiracy theory is time travel's real. Haha. Anyway, moving on with my fucking life. Versus a cult is time travel is real and I'm going to save the human race because of it. Like, those are very extreme polar opposites, but
if you think about like flat earthers, there are some flat earthers who are so hardcore that like
that's true.
YouTube channels, they have like, they think everyone else is wrong. They think the government is against them, but I wouldn't consider like that a cult.
I wonder if it's because they're not losing family and money
because I think a cult typically has like a leader or like a devotion to like I feel like maybe it's too vague. Like there's so many different.
I wonder if because of QAnon, that's actually a great we didn't plan this, but that's a great that's interesting. I wonder if because of QAnon, there's going to become a third category.
There could be, definitely.
Because like you said, with flat earthers or, some other people, I'm not going to like just shout out a bunch of people I don't agree with, but I would say that a lot of them kind of fall into that gray space then, don't they?
Yeah. And especially because a lot of them end up converging. So there are a lot of flat earthers who end up getting involved in anti-Semitism and neo-Nazism, and there's a lot of overlap. So I don't know, like I wonder if it's just too broad to categorize.
Maybe it's I don't know. Honestly, maybe the third group right now, or maybe the gray space, is that conspiratorial groupthink or quasi-religious. Which
sounds just as dangerous to me, to be fair.
The definition of the quasi-religious worldview is having features of extreme religious groups. So having features, and maybe not some of them, but having some, but not all of them. So maybe that's what this weird gray space is. And if that is the case, I could understand, I guess, why people are putting QAnon into that category for the time being. Then again, I think it has promoted itself.
Yeah, no, I can totally see what you're saying. Yeah.
So I can understand why maybe experts are hesitant to say something.
Maybe it's just so new that they're trying to
they're just fucking
define it first.
They're just frantic, being like,
kind of keep up. Yeah, because it keeps changing and growing. I mean, this is within the last year that it's gotten like so massive.
Insane.
I mean, wow.
So anyway,
I'm not saying it's any less dangerous than a cult. It might be more so, but I'm just saying like
maybe it's more so because it's like it doesn't even have a label. It knows no bounds.
Yeah, it's almost scarier.
So anyway, that's what experts are saying. I guess it's the kind of middle gray space. I personally think it has exceeded those limitations. So like a cult, it lures you in with a horrible story of society that makes you want to, help be a part of the change. In this case, it was human trafficking. So it makes you feel really important. And to those who hate what's going on in the world right now, which there have been a lot of reasons in the last year, to hear someone saying we're trying to save the world at least sounds like a fun idea. Like at least sounds like you're in the right direction.
Like most people could get on board with that. Like,
yeah,
sure, out of context, yeah, we all want to save the world.
Exactly, especially when it's something as serious as human trafficking.
Totally.
And I mentioned her last time, but she's an ex-neo-Nazi. Her name was Shannon Foley Martinez, and she's been chiming in wherever she can on QAnon and saying, this is one of her quotes about everyone just wanting to do good and starting with the right intentions. Shannon said, quote, especially moms at home, when we start interjecting the idea that children are in danger, of course, moms in particular and women are like, how do we save the children? So when they start investigating and when you feel like you've found the real facts that have been hidden from you, that's very alluring and seductive and feels like empowerment. So Travis View from the QAnon Anonymous podcast said, you can sit at your computer and search for information, and QAnon basically promises that through this process, you're going to radically change the country, institute this incredible, almost bloodless revolution, and then be part of this historical movement that will be written about for generations. And then another thing that Travis View said was the QAnon community also often talks about alienation from family and friends, but they think these issues are temporary and primarily the fault of others. They often comfort themselves by imagining that there will be a moment of vindication sometime in the near future, which will prove their beliefs right. They imagine after this happens, not only will their relationships be restored, but people will turn to them as leaders themselves who understand what's going on better than the rest of us.
I mean, I don't know if you watched the NXIVM docuseries, but that is so spot on of like, if people are if you're disconnecting from people, it's because they don't understand it. And if they came to a meeting, if they came, they would understand and they would realize why I'm part of this, or they would join too. I mean, it's that thinking of like, they just don't understand. They're like, they're not in the right headspace. Yeah. It's easy to.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly. And so from those three quotes, I feel like it kind of hits a lot of the tenets of what a cult is.
Sure.
And that,
I agree.
That you think you're saving the world from some evil. You think that you are really special and part of this movement that's going to change the world. And you have this community behind you that's telling you like, oh, if you alienate yourself from these people, it's almost like it soothes the burden of losing your family because you think it's only temporary, because one day, once everyone has reached an ascension or a utopia or an enlightenment, everyone will come back together and you don't have to worry about saying goodbye for now.
Totally.
Which that's what I took from it. And NPR interviewed Travis and they said, without Trump, does QAnon fizzle? And Travis said, without L. Ron Hubbard, did Scientology fizzle?
Ooh, I just got major goose cam. That is
right?
Not a
that
good
was
feeling to me.
The quote of the century to me. And
oh my goodness.
He said, once a movement like this grows to a certain size and once the believers in it become dedicated enough, it becomes self-sustaining and it doesn't need its founder or leader anymore.
And Scientology did that without fucking Facebook. So yikes.
Oh yeah. They did it for years without Facebook. Now imagine if Scientology, if instead of Trump not being president now, imagine L. Ron Hubbard just died and Scientology has the internet. Like, I mean,
yeah.
And everyone's inside with nothing to do. I mean, how fast would everyone be a Scientologist right now? And so one of the fun aspects of a cult is that they also, and this is where, I don't know, I guess it could also still be a little conspiracy theory-esque, but cult leaders in general, they like to exploit anxiety with as much ambiguity as possible to kind of let you fill in the gaps yourself.
Sure. It's like that guy at the Rajneeshi who's just took an oath of silence and everybody was like, oh, well, I know he approves of the way I believe it because he wasn't saying anything.
It's what I like to call customized anxiety. Because
that has a much more like alluring ring to me. I would get on board with that.
Well, because like they tell you just enough to be afraid and then let your own paranoia fill in the gaps of how the worst thing possible could happen and what the best way you can help is.
Yeah.
So I guess that's where I hesitated earlier, but I'm going to go back to my original thought of, I think that's what makes it culty too. And that like, in terms of conspiracy theories, you don't have as much of this customized anxiety where everything kind of implodes to either the end of the world or it's your responsibility to get on board and help reach salvation or something like that. Anyway, so last week I said a lot of QAnon jargon, and I said the week before too, has a lot of religious tropes that maybe also lure in certain people because they're familiar with that jargon. They're familiar with everything happens for a reason, or there being a plan for things. And during a time of intense anxiety, wanting similar explanations. So a lot of QAnon Christian jargon specifically, they've talked about the storm, the Great Awakening, and it's all reminiscent of a lot of people's upbringings. It's gotten to a point, this is also where I think we have exceeded that gray space and gone into cult zone, is because there are now churches starting about this.
Oh my gosh. What?
So some followers have a religious level of worship. Enough
dear.
of them got together. And the thing that's creepy to me is that like a lot of people say that they joined because I'm only speaking specifically about Christians. I did not see anything about any other religions. I will say, ironically, a lot of Jewish people have also joined for very other reasons. If you're Orthodox Jewish, a lot of anti-vax stuff is how they got kind of sucked into this. Or again, a lot of Jewish mothers at home were afraid of human trafficking. My mother's afraid when I like stub my fucking toe. So can you imagine if there was a human trafficking ring she could help with? So I mean, like, it's anyone is able to get into this.
Right.
I'm not trying to pinpoint Christians, so please don't take it that way. But in terms of Christianity, a lot of people have said that they fell into it because it felt so similar to their current faith. And that is interesting to me because then those people, or anyone in QAnon, but especially, I'm talking about Christian people right now, they have such a religious level of worship to QAnon that it's replacing their own religion that got them into this to begin with. Or I will also say in a little bit, I'm going to talk about how there are a lot of Christians who, because of their faith, they got out. So I'm not saying that Christianity is the reason you get sucked in QAnon, but a lot of their core beliefs that brought them into QAnon or made QAnon feel alluring, they ended up like replacing their religion with this level of worship for Trump and QAnon and almost matching them to their God or their Bible, So very interesting in that it feels like a replacement, or they're equating them in some way. So anyway, yes, there is a church now. I'm assuming a lot of people who already had some sort of faith, kind of a church seemed like a nice idea that, also followed QAnon beliefs. And now it's kind of just becoming, it's getting out of hand. There's an independent church in Indiana that's doing this. I would say that they're probably still selling themselves as, we're like, insert denomination here.
Right.
We're a church that happens to also all be QAnon followers, or we happen to also have faith in QAnon, or we also happen to have a belief system rooted in Q. So I don't think they're calling themselves a QAnon church, but I think they probably all like met on Reddit or something. That's how it feels. So anyway, one person did write about this. They joined the QAnon Indiana church services, and it was originally on Zoom. Eventually it had to go to YouTube because it exceeded the number limit.
Oh shit, really? God.
So many people started going. Essentially, they said it's a QAnon church. It's an independent congregation. They were calling, I don't know if this is what the church themselves were calling them or if this is what the author was saying, but they were called Q-vangelicals instead of evangelical. Really an insult to evangelicals. I think personally, the service apparently began with them protecting the Zoom room from Satan.
Cool. Oh, we forgot to do that today.
Yeah, well, we did it every other day, so we're probably safe today.
Okay.
And then they did a Bible study, and they incorporated Q videos into the sermon, and
not good.
where they also were they apparently took like a 15-minute breather or something where they also tried to decode Q drops or breadcrumbs. In one service, apparently they talked about Project Looking Glass, which is some sort of military time travel tech, which like I can get on board with that, but like that's about it.
Yeah.
They were preaching time travel can be this. I took, I think, straight from the article, so I don't want anyone to think there was any plagiarism. But after talking about Project Looking Glass, they preached that time travel can be explained by certain passages. And then they also said that you should stop listening to all media, including like media that normal, average, everyday QAnon people follow. They would all media just wipe it out because it's satanic in some way.
So nothing is safe.
Nothing is safe. Except all of these QAnon videos. I think 2 of them that they were showing during this church were the 2 I mentioned earlier that got a lot of people involved, the Plandemic and Fall Cabal. Yeah. I think Fall Cabal was part of this service.
Great.
So since all media might be controlled, it's all therefore potentially satanic, so just avoid it altogether. And instead, this church suggested a bunch of QAnon YouTube channels, QAnon influencers, and their ministry apparently collects funds for Reclamation Ranch, which this is like where
that.
It also starts to feel really culty because now you're taking their money in some way.
Yep.
And apparently Reclamation Ranch is like it helps rescue kids from the deep state or the human trafficking ring.
Oh, geez.
So again, there you have that. Switching gears, I want to say here are other ways that there have been some like weird faith in how it became religious at some point. In 1831, there was a Baptist preacher, William Miller, who predicted the second coming of Jesus was going to be on October 22nd, 1844. It didn't happen, and his followers were crushed. Apparently, this day was called the Great Disappointment, which is hysterical to me. Which like every day of 2020 was technically the Great Disappointment.
Oh my God.
So these followers, they didn't lose faith though, even though like a prediction had been proven wrong in front of them, but they didn't lose faith. And eventually these followers became Seventh-day Adventists. And now there's 20 million worldwide, which by the way, by the estimates that documentary was saying, there's more QAnon people in the world than Seventh-day Adventists. If I'm doing that right, hopefully that's not true. So anyway, there's one author named Norman Cohn, and he wrote The Pursuit of the Millennium. And in terms of apocalyptic thinking, he compared QAnon to this level of blind religious faith.
Yeah.
And so this is a quote from him. This is a long quote, but it was all really powerful to me. The Seventh-day Adventists and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are thriving religious movements indigenous to America. Do not be surprised if QAnon becomes another, aka get ready for QAnon to become a religion. It already has more adherents by far than either of those two denominations. Adherents?
Yeah, you said right.
Okay. It already has more adherents by far than either of those two denominations had in the first decades of their existence. In the first decades, and this is 1 year. They already People are expressing their faith through devoted study of Q drops as installments of a foundational text, through the development of Q worshiping groups, and through sweeping expressions of gratitude for what Q has brought to their lives. Does it matter that we do not know who Q is? The divine is always a mystery.
Yeah, that's probably part of the appeal.
Yep. It's like we don't know who God is, but people follow God. Does it matter that basic aspects of Q's teachings cannot be confirmed? The basic tenets of Christianity cannot be confirmed. Among the people of QAnon, faith remains absolute. True believers describe a feeling of rebirth and irreversible arousal to existential knowledge. They are certain that a great awakening is coming. They'll wait as long as they must for deliverance. Trust the plan. Enjoy the show. Nothing can stop what is coming.
Okay, woof. I am freaked out, officially freaked out.
And this is... I wrote here, it was clearly 2 a.m. I wrote a quote by yours truly. Great. So this is where I listed all of the ways that I feel like it is a cult. And maybe now that we've had this conversation and you've made me rethink things, maybe it just falls into quasi-religious movements or whatever.
If they're starting churches and shit, like I am way on board with the cult thing.
So these are some of the ways that let me just describe this, and you tell me if I'm talking about a conspiracy theory or if I'm talking about a cult.
Okay.
You very subtly get lured in the beginning with false promises of doing good.
Uh-huh.
You begin learning the group's baseless secrets that the world doesn't want you to know.
Uh-huh.
You alienate yourself from others. You feel connected to something bigger than yourself. You have a leader or a savior and a community making you feel special for being awake to the truth. You feel united in fighting against evil. You're a part of saving the world. You believe in predictions of big things that are coming that you can help prepare for.
Mm-hmm.
You recruit others to save them, to help lead them to truth, or to help lead them to salvation. Or you shun them if they challenge you too many times. You believe in a soon-to-be reckoning and then some version of ascension into utopia. When all of that doesn't happen, you have so much faith in your belief system, you will deny inconsistencies to explain away the disillusionment. You're led, therefore, into an escalated and more extreme worldview because of these new beliefs you had to create to explain away your previous views. You are willing to lose your loved ones for the cause. So that's 14 or 15.
We're in. I mean, listen, there's no...
Oh, and number 15 can be, and also churches are being created because apparently it's akin to God.
And it's being described as like evangelist behavior, which is, this is frightening to me. Yeah.
And let me just say, if you are someone who has been kind of flirting with the idea of QAnon and you are here, I don't know, if you're listening and you might be part of QAnon and maybe you're kind of being rattled, let me just say this really quickly. No theory that you learned a few months ago is worth losing your family or your friends over. That's just that. So if you needed something, there's that information. And if you needed to hear it from somebody, a stranger, hi, there you go. And this is where I now talk about the most important part of how to help someone get out. So the first real disillusionment has happened, which is awesome. So far, like the big first real, the Great Awakening, if you will, just the one that's on the right side of history in my perspective, was that Biden became president and they were fucking wrong.
Despite all the promises and
Yes. And that really shook some people. They couldn't process how the plan didn't happen and the plan that they were screaming about everywhere and the plan that they were shouting at all of us that we'll all see, it didn't come through. So even anons on, and when I say anons, I mean anonymous people on 8kun, I think someone
did you see what that meant?
I did. I saw a few answers, but the overwhelming majority said that kun or kun is, it means like a masculine, it like means son, like the son of 4chan or 8chan or something like that.
Well, so chan means like, or is one of the, it's either the feminine or the masculine, and then kun is the other, is the opposite. So basically if you're saying 4chan and 4kun are like the opposite.
Got it.
Like this they described as brother sister channels. I
saw someone describe it as 4 Christine and 8 Zandy or something like.
Yeah, because they're like sibling websites or like brother sister websites. Yeah, that's funny.
So
I don't want to be associated with 4chan, but thanks thanks guys.
So anyway, members of Anonymous that day, the day that Biden was inaugurated, they were all writing online with a lot of mixed feelings. And remember, the current owner of 8kun is Ron Watkins or Jim Watkins and Ron Watkins. Even them on that day of Biden's inauguration, they wrote on their forum saying, quote, "It's time to go back to our lives as best we are able." So even they were like, wow, can we just fucking end this?
Move on. Yeah.
Yeah. So this all comes, this is the new theory. Remember, once you are challenged or something doesn't make sense, you double down and try to rationalize why it is the way it is. So there's this new belief for the people who aren't rattled and are like really hunkering into like QAnon exists and this was just part of the plan. I think this faction of QAnon people showed up after Biden's inauguration. But the new belief is that obviously FDR replaced the gold standard by offering people to foreign investors. So humans were being traded with foreign investors, obviously.
Cool. Great.
Before this happened, though, I mentioned this a little bit in the last episode, but now I'm explaining it. Before this happened, before FDR replaced the gold standard, presidents were always sworn in on March 4th. Those are the only presidents that are valid. Those are the only presidents worth paying attention to.
Right.
So that means any president who hasn't been sworn in on March 4th, we don't even count. And that's why instead of Trump being number 45, he's actually been number 19 all along, or he's would have become 19. He was 18. I don't understand. Okay, 19. Think of him as 19 instead of 45.
No thanks.
Okay. And so this March 4th, this was all part of the plan. They want you to think Biden won the presidency, even though they all fucking said the plan is Trump is going to become the president. Now they're saying, oh, the plan got edited or updated. And so now Biden's supposed to make you think he's president. But now this March 4th,
oh boy,
the United States is going to revert back to its original form. Quote.
But like what? Like,
and how? Like what? Aliens are going to, with what? Project Time Travel or whatever?
Right. Like, I don't get like why all of a sudden it's like more surprise. Like, who's planning this? I don't understand.
Anyway, apparently March 4th will now be the new reckoning where Trump does become president. And we realize the last couple months have been a total sham.
And that's in like 2 weeks. That's in like less than 2 weeks. It's like in a week.
It's like the next time an episode comes out, I think. So anyway.
No, it's literally a week from tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay,
Fucking
well, we'll know by then, I guess. But so everyone is now saying, oh, March 4th, that's the new plan. That's the new plan.
You're right. That's just going to keep adapting. When that doesn't happen, they're going to say, oh, the next election, it's going to happen. Like, it's just going to keep getting.
Yeah. Well, luckily this was the first real disillusionment, or as I'm going to call the Great Awakening, because I think that's just comedy gold there.
It's pretty clever.
That even devout QAnon followers hesitated because they were like, whoa, like that, I don't buy it. Like something is weird. I was promised this whole time. And now there's this random plan about because FDR like sold gold and humans. So like a lot of people are starting to kind of wake up.
That's good.
Yeah. So that's really nice. And right now God, I wish I have the link, but I don't know which link it was that talked about this. I don't remember which article it was, but I have it right here. Perfect. Okay. So it was a 538 article. Basically, they're talking about right now, because people are kind of starting to get rattled, or at least the first real wave of people who are waking up from QAnon are starting to show themselves. This is the first real opportunity we've had to potentially pull doubting believers out from the conspiracy before one of three things happen. So there's one of three paths after Biden's inauguration that will happen for QAnon people. The first one is unshakable faith, where now they're doubling down more than ever. And again, when people say like, well, once your big plan failed, why don't you leave? That's kind of like when cults say like, oh, the UFOs are coming to get us, and then they don't show up. You know, it's like,
yep.
And actually, I'm not even going to say cults in that case. I'm going to say quasi-religious blah, 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 because I feel like that's fair and more open, especially with like Seventh-day Adventists. Like the Great Reckoning didn't happen, and then they became Seventh-day Adventists, and they're not a cult as far as I know. So
right. No, I see what you're saying.
Anyway, I don't want to put that title on in that spot. I don't want to put a title. But so it's a really good point in that, like, in most cases, people, I think there was a quote, a prophecy comes after the group has already been established. So when believers find these holes in their beliefs, it's easy to fill the gaps. And since Biden was inaugurated, now everyone's saying, oh, well, this was a plan. Trump's going to be president March 4th. Also, the inauguration was fake. A lot of people have been saying that the Bible that he swore on was fake, which doesn't even have to be a fucking Bible. But okay. So unshakable faith is the first one. The second one is doubting QAnon, which is what we want.
That would be great. Yep.
I want option 2. Basically, they could finally get back in touch with their loved ones. People are starting to look at their past inconsistencies. A lot of ex-QAnon members have said what got them through it, or what made them wake up, was they found threads online, which if you see this thread online, I encourage you to retweet that shit in case it happens for someone else, where these threads were listing all of the failed QAnon predictions all at once.
Oh, interesting.
So I imagine, like, yeah, usually if you can see an inconsistency and you can plan out ways to fill the holes, if you see all of those predictions that failed at one time, you can't possibly fill all those holes at one time, especially when all of them are such wild theories. You can't come up with that stuff right away, and it'll startle you.
Right.
So anyway, so that's one thing. I mentioned earlier, a lot of people who were specifically Christian, because I didn't see this anywhere else, but a lot of Christian QAnon followers said that one of the reasons that they were able to get out is because someone challenged them not challenged them, but asked the simple question of, I think you're holding Q to the same level you hold God, or I think you're holding these breadcrumbs and these hints and these secrets of the world, you're holding them to the same standard as you would the Bible.
And that's the 10 Commandments. So
yeah. And so that woke a lot of people up, and they were like, oh, this is wrong. You don't hold anything to the same standard as God.
Interesting. Okay.
So congratulations to the people who have gotten out. There is one guy, I mentioned him last time. He did a Reddit AMA as an ex-QAnon follower. This is a quote of his that said, it was how he got out. It was a couple of posts made by Q on the chans. Oh, this is the guy I was talking about when some people started waking up because they realized that they think Q is like a baby boomer who's like,
oh yeah, who's
writing.
not good at punctuation. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is one of those cases, and this was a quote of that. It was a couple of posts made by Q on the chans that seemed highly suspicious because of how ignorant they were to technology. Q posts often had weird syntax as originally a code, and the way he writes, some people have read into it being clues, but this guy saw it as an older person trying to use the wrong tech jargon, basically. He said, one morning, Q claimed to have shut down 7 FBI supercomputers, named after the 7 dwarves, no less, via satellite hacking, and all of the rabid fans ate it up, claiming it was true because their internet had been running a bit faster now.
Oh, come on.
I realized that most of the Q believers I had seen were boomers with no idea how technology works, or people my age with no idea about how computers operate. That day I Googled QAnon debunked and got out. So
wow, it was interesting. So it's like, no matter what angle, like if you find that angle that's like,
yeah,
that's you. Interesting.
And I also think it's interesting that it was kind of a combination situation for him where it was like, I kind of think QAnon is a boomer. And also now that I'm thinking about it, all of his followers that I know of are also boomers, and they're all talking about how they know for sure a satellite was hacked. Like, it's like, okay. And this isn't to like totally rip on boomers. Some of you are very perfectly digitally literate.
And some of us younger
and some of us
generations are shitty at tech too. So it's not like a one all.
Yeah. Right. So the other third option, other than unshakable faith, doubting Q, or the third one is becoming way more extreme, which is terrifying.
Ooh, let's not do that.
I would like that one off the table completely. For a lot of loyalists, Biden winning has them super angry in the wrong way at the wrong people, and they're slipping even deeper into fringe beliefs to try to explain it away. A lot of these people probably feel really powerless because the thing they were promised by their own group, they are feeling betrayed. They don't trust their own community. And usually if you don't trust, you feel like you can't trust your current fringe community, you just find another. So now this one set of beliefs you already have that are very extreme, you're now going to just marry into another set of extreme beliefs. And other extreme groups, by the way, especially white nationalists, apparently, they have noted that these people are currently very vulnerable. They feel betrayed by their own, and they are eager, the white nationalists and other extreme groups are very eager to recruit these new, already manipulated people. Since a lot of these people all find each other on more conservative right-wing social platforms, it's just the same situation all over again, where the internet is at your disposal. A lot of people are looking for answers all over again. They're just frustrated. They feel betrayed. They want someone to listen to. And now not only are they just talking on like Facebook and Twitter, where there's a whole bunch of different kinds of people to reach out to, but now they're reaching out on, I'm speaking specifically about like Parler and Gab and all that, not to totally call them out, but those apps existing now gives confused extremists a concentrated group of people who are more likely to take them in. And that happens to be the platforms that people with some really alt-right opinions are on.
Yeah.
So since all these groups are just like, it's just a breeding ground for extreme beliefs at this point, even the like quote vanilla conservatives on these pages are getting wrangled in. So like it's just slowly sucking people in. Everyone, I would imagine, has at least heard of QAnon if you're on those platforms. I don't know. I am not on those platforms, but I would imagine there's, compared to like, I don't know, others, I would imagine there's BuzzFeed. I would imagine there's a lot of people involved in QAnon on those platforms ripe for the picking.
Right.
And basically when they decide to start working together, these, whether it's I'm just using white nationalists over and over again, but for example, white nationalists, if they decide to start working together with QAnon people who feel like they're betrayed, or they're coming up with even more reasons to explain away Trump not becoming president, whatever it is, once they all band together, if they were to start protesting, a former QAnon member said, it will make January 6th look like a joke, which is the storming of the Capitol.
Yeah. Don't love that.
So there's the notion that the storming of the Capitol is just the beginning, because people are now going to really band together now that Biden has become president. So that terrifies me.
Yeah.
And advice that, despite all that, the people who are leaving, who have chosen option 2, we welcome you, we embrace you, welcome back. And advice from former members of QAnon and cult recovery professionals, they are all pretty much saying the same thing. And let me take this moment to say, people have lost their families, they've lost their friends to QAnon. They feel like QAnon has been chosen over them. Those who are lost are isolating themselves. Thus, they're falling deeper and deeper into the belief because they're relying on people who aren't their loved ones for social interaction. This QAnon is devastating people, which is why I consider it a cult, one of the many reasons that I listed. There's also a fear for a lot of people that if this starts falling into more violent or extreme factions, QAnon could very quickly become physically harmful to people and their families. Fred Brennan, or the guy who created 8chan, and then he ended up selling his website to Jim Watkins, where QAnon now is running. He even said, like, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, like, I'm terrified that one day someone from QAnon is going to like kill their children for the sake of saving them from people. Or like, I mean, it is really terrifying how fast it can get once you've incited a little violence, and people could start doing real damage because they think they're doing it for the better good or the greater good.
Yeah.
So it's not just losing family members, it's being worried about their mental and physical safety.
Yeah.
And there's additional pain for a lot of people who are now leaving QAnon, but before they did, they recruited their own loved ones into it with them. And now they have to not only walk away from this whole belief system, but also the people that they love, and they have to deal with the guilt of bringing them into that group, and now they're walking away from them after bringing them into it. What's more difficult is that stubborn QAnon followers, even if they might kind of start doubting, they will be afraid to admit that they were wrong due to the amount of time that they have invested in this, due to the sacrifices they've made for this, especially during a pandemic when this has been some people's 40-hour work week, is just learning about QAnon. And the overall suggestions from former members and psychologists and cult experts, they're all basically the same. And before I say these things, I want to give my own very unofficial, I am not an expert opinion. If you, for some reason, have lost somebody to QAnon and your choice has been to walk away completely, and your boundary that you've set for yourself is to just not have a relationship with them, you are 100% valid in that. Mm-hmm. You are 100% valid in it being too fucking much. Maybe to you, they are too gone. It's
not your responsibility necessarily.
It's not your responsibility. Yeah. It's not worth your sanity. You know, if the options are both of you go down trying to get them out of QAnon, or only they're damaged and you can move on from this, you are valid. The only reason I say that is because the overwhelming majority of recommendations is that you stay in touch with them in some way. And I don't want anyone listening to this feeling guilty.
Sure.
You should not feel guilty. This is just a suggestion from other people. So experts are saying, first of all, if you are still talking to them, don't challenge them, because they're just going to dig their heels in. Don't try to show them evidence, because you're just showing them evidence from sources that they were trained not to trust or indoctrinated not to trust. And if anything, you're just proving to them that you're part of the problem and they can't come to you because you are falling for media. So if you show them credible sources to us and it's not credible to them, they're just going to end up running further into the QAnon community because they need to go bitch about the experience to other people who get them, you know? So just try not to have logical arguments with people who are not being logical. One quote is, to try to make rational arguments is not going to work because they're not thinking rationally. Another quote is, I don't think they can be reasoned out of beliefs they weren't reasoned into. Instead, what you can do is continue loving them. I will add the caveat of, if that means from a distance, great. If your boundary is, I love them from afar, awesome. If you can, or if you're willing, check in on them. Many former members have described being in QAnon like a drug, which can be offensive, I imagine, to addicts. So I'm not trying to be insensitive to that, but a lot of former members have said it feels like a drug because you're learning these clues. You feel this sense of entitlement and power. And once you've figured out one clue, and like you've decoded it, and now you have a piece of the puzzle that's going to save the world, you need more and more and more and more. Interestingly, experts have also compared leaving cults to those with histories with addiction, at least in terms of one of the big things is isolating yourself from your family and people who can help you. So one of the things that experts say is focus on their higher selves. So start with where their good intentions ended. So be like, I agree that human sex trafficking is terrible. I would love to help you with that. Or I'm so happy that, that's a big important value to you. And then just redirect the sources they look at least like show them a couple links to other human trafficking foundations. And so it's not necessarily what CNN is saying, what NBC is saying, what New York Times is saying. Just, hey, since you're really into human trafficking and saving children, really into human trafficking, yikes. But since you're really into saving people from this, here are some other foundations you can donate to or work with while you're also in QAnon. And hopefully that gives them steps into talking to other people away from the movement.
That sounds real hard because I have some relatives pretty far removed in QAnon, and some of them are very, very cruel and racist and angry. So even that far, I'm not, you know what I mean? Like,
no, I totally get it. In that, I saw a lot of that in rebuttals to this advice of like, I can try, but like that's not a simple fix. So anyway, if they are, let's say, early on in the movement and easier swayed, maybe that's a good
or
way
if
to
it's
do it.
somebody that you know well enough to be like, I know where their heart is, or I know, because obviously like some of the people I'm thinking of, like, they were always racist. It's not like, oh, suddenly they became, that was always a part of their personality. So I don't want to be involved with him anyway.
Right.
If you're like, oh, my brother, uncle, mom, or whomever, like, I know that they're being skewed, or they have a different heart. That makes more sense.
Yeah. Another one is, again, I said this earlier, but if they are religious in some way, maybe see if they're what pedestal they're putting Q on, which is how a lot of Christians left. Also remind them of shared experiences and memories, because one of the things that I didn't mention earlier, but would like to tack onto my list of ways this is like a cult, is because it removes you from your prior identity before QAnon, or before whatever belief system you're in. And so remind them of memories but only think of them as your sibling or your friend or your schoolmate, or back in college when you were roommates. Remember this wonderful time together? And it kind of takes them out of thinking about QAnon for 1 fucking second, which chances are, if they're that deep in, it's all they're thinking about anymore. And so it's just a good time to remind them that they do have an identity outside of QAnon that they may have abandoned. So another one, which is like kind of like in terms of advice, because I feel like it's like, what's a great way to, be celibate, not have sex, and abstinence? Like, it's like, it feels icky. It feels like kind of, hey, the best way to get out of this is to not even start it from the beginning. But one of the big suggestions is focus your attention on what QAnon is and learn as much as you can so that you don't accidentally get sucked into it too. And it's like, I get it, but I want to know how I can help other people. So anyway, to help yourself, learn as much as you can, and hopefully you won't be swayed while you're talking to QAnon members and trying to help them.
Right.
I wanted to add that in, but I feel like that's kind of like a counterintuitive one. It's like, okay, yeah, I get that one.
Sure.
Also, you can focus your attention on those who have yet to be initiated into QAnon. And if you see people online kind of being swayed or lured in, and they're clearly brand new and kind of just open to it, step in on those comments and say something quickly and like redirect them to actual sources before they think that those sources aren't credible. And I mean, it only takes a few weeks apparently to get completely radicalized. But if you see someone hopefully on like day one and there's time to reroute their thinking, do it, and try to figure out what loved ones' fears and needs are before a cult understands them better than you understands them better. So if you know that they're just like missing out on social interaction, try to like do some like weekly movie nights or some shit. Like, I mean, that's a really small example, but if you can figure out what their anxiety is and what answers they're looking for, try to find a way to get them those answers or fulfill those psychological needs before they're taking extreme measures. Also, you can offer them resources like I've mentioned, but you can suggest breaks from media. That's a great way to offer a resource because you're not telling them what not to believe. You're just telling them what to not really look at for 5 minutes. Also, don't expect them to change overnight. You got to be patient if you're willing to put in this work. Also, I did not do enough research on this, but one person who is a former QAnon member says their best tip is to, when you're asking questions, instead of accidentally challenging them and making them dig their heels in, ask them questions with street epistemology techniques, which apparently is a conversation tool to help understand one's beliefs. I feel like it sounds controversial to me because one, I don't know enough about it. So I don't know if I should be really sharing that information without being totally enlightened on it. But it feels like if you were like someone preaching on the sidewalk, how you can lure people into your way of thinking. So it feels a little icky without me knowing too much about it. But I want to give it a shout out because former QAnon members say that it's what got them out and how they've been helping other people. So if it works, I guess.
Sure.
Just hopefully you're using it for the right reasons. Also, be willing to listen if they do start addressing their doubts. Don't come at them with facts. Don't just listen. Just shut up and listen because they're telling you their feelings. They trust you. The last thing you want to do is make them second guess their trust in you because then they'll just run right back into it. And then list, this one I liked a lot, list the classic tactics of what a conspiracy theory is, just to kind of remind them like, hey, this kind of aligns with what you're going through right now. Sounds a lot like a conspiracy theory. If you'd like, if they're really extreme and you want to list my things where I said how it feels like a cult, maybe just like test the waters. But you could list the early tactics of a conspiracy theory is that there is a false authority figure, there's an appeal to one's anger and prejudices, and an urgency for a claim. An urgency of a claim that like something's coming or there's something really bad going on and we need your help. So this is so fucking cool, by the way, and this goes out to everyone, not just QAnon members, but to spread awareness of tactics of a conspiracy theory. There was a team, I think this was the same guy who gave information from Cambridge earlier, Professor van der Linden. His team, to spread awareness of conspiracy theory tactics, made an online game that anyone can play, and it's called Go Viral, and it teaches how fake news spreads itself and how quickly it spreads itself. So it's called Go Viral with an exclamation point if you want to go play it.
Cool.
And so it's just another easy way to like insert yourself without stressing people out. Also, I think this is hysterical. A former cult member said, just tell them to do their own research. So I think I see the dark humor in that. Obviously, they're doing other research at the moment, so they're a little busy. But if someone does show any doubts, just be like, hey, even if these sources, even if you don't think they're credible, maybe just give them a read and just like, if you just kind of just see what you think about it. And then the one of the things I think is super cool, maybe this has always been happening in terms of helping people escape cults, but this is the first time I'm seeing it, so it feels really special to me, is that a lot of former cult members have been like rallying together in terms of QAnon, and they have been trying to now monitor QAnon threads so they can help pull people out.
Oh, that's great.
Other ex-cult members have been coming out specifically in support and to give resources for people as they're leaving QAnon. When you say like
ex-cult, are you saying all cults or just QAnon?
No, sorry. So I've been saying like former or ex-QAnon members when I mean just QAnon, but this is like generally ex-cult members.
Oh, wow. Okay, interesting. Yeah,
ex-cult members have been coming together to help out QAnon. I don't know if this is like, maybe it's just the sources I read, but it seemed like most of them were former Moonies.
Wow, interesting. Okay.
But so they started a hashtag called I Got Out. And so you can look at that hashtag and see all these people's stories. And like I said, they are going and following QAnon pages to like insert themselves in early enough to sway people against QAnon. Another person who's really big in trying to help people get out is an ex-QAnon member named Jatarth Jadeja. And he spoke to Anderson Cooper, where he literally apologized to Anderson Cooper for everything he used to think, because he was like all the way in, like, there are blue interdimensional reptiles and Hollywood eats babies. He literally said on his show, actually Anderson Cooper said the quote, "Did you believe high level Democrats and celebrities were worshiping Satan and drinking the blood of children?" And he said, "Anderson, I thought you did that. And I would like to apologize right now. I apologize for thinking that you ate babies."
Whoa,
So
what a statement.
In terms of like feeling like you came full circle, like you got to literally tell Anderson Cooper anything, but also like it's got to feel good that he's trying to do his part and is
absolutely
also getting to apologize to people. But so he's going around and like doing like, from what I guess, a press circuit in some way, because he's been everywhere in the research I did trying to get people out or tell his story. In terms of support groups, there's not a lot yet, just because I think QAnon is so new. But there is one that has been offered. I think it was a support group for just people who have lost loved ones to cults in general. It's called Antidote. And I saw someone on a Q forum suggest Antidote. I don't know anything more about that, but please check that out if you have lost someone. Also, ironically, the place where it all began is doing the most right now, because a lot of the sources people are getting for relieving the fact that they've lost ones to QAnon is Reddit. And there are 2 subreddits specifically where anytime I looked up like how to get people out, these were the 2 that kept getting shout outs. The first one is Recovery, but Recovery is spelled with a Q. REQUOVERY. And then the other one, which I would say is the biggest and I would say currently the most influential in terms of QAnon support groups right now, is QAnon Casualties. And it's a Reddit. It's a subreddit dedicated to people who have lost loved ones or are in the process of losing loved ones. In June, so 3 months into QAnon kind of getting really popular, only 3,500 people were in the group, and now it is at 137,000.
Wow.
And what's interesting is when I planned on covering this part of the topic last week, there were 5,000 people less.
Wow.
So in the last week, 5,000 people have joined. Still growing. So I would very much suggest that. I've seen a lot of posts in there where people are like, because I lost my family, you're my family. Like a lot of people are relying on QAnon Casualties as almost a source for like, how do I do this? How do I do this? Like, I can't talk to my mom anymore. Like, what do I do? So it looks like it's becoming a really wonderful place in terms of an actual community. So please go check those out. I am so sorry that this was so long, but I do want to say that even though this was 3 episodes and several hours long of information, that one of the reasons I covered it so intensely is because it is shocking how many people that listen to this podcast are affected by this. I only know because of Tea Time Tuesday, which I guess in its own is like a little blessing in disguise, because I became aware of this. I don't think I would have cared as much or realized that I should care as much had I not seen every week people writing in being like, I just lost my dad. I just lost my brother. My best friend is in QAnon. I don't know what to do. So I have had a little bit of a window or a little light shed on it to me. And if you are out there listening to this podcast, which there are many of you, if you have lost loved ones, you're not even alone in the And That's Why We Drink community. There's a lot of you. So
good point.
Please don't feel like you can't find each other and take care of each other, because this is a really, really terrible thing. And I identify it as a cult. Others don't have to, but just from...
It's dangerous no matter what you label it.
It's dangerous. It's not, this isn't cute. So the end. That is QAnon. I never, ever want to talk about it again.
Q isn't cute. That's the end. We're not talking about
Q ain't cute. Q ain't cute.
Wow. Good job.
Wow.
You did it.
Thank you.
I'm so proud of you.
I did it. I can't wait to go back to talking about ghosts next week, everyone. This was really fucking awful. And like, I'm sitting here complaining that I had to talk about it for 3 days of my life. And there are people out there living this. So I can't imagine. It was, for me, this is the most entitled part of it, is that like, I was so exhausted and mentally drained from doing research. I can't imagine having someone in my life going through this.
Or having to do the research because it personally
yes,
affects
exactly.
you. Yeah, that's a good point.
So
but
my
you did a good service. You did a good
thank
thing.
you. My goal is to pull one person out of QAnon. That would be a very delightful. If that's the one thing that ever came out of And That's Why We Drink, beautiful.
Yeah, agreed. And I would have just been sitting here drinking and watching it happen, and I'm fine with that. Don't spit on the microphone.
You picked a really bad time while
Sorry.
the biggest gulp of water in my mouth.
Okay, maybe you picked a bad time. Okay.
Okay, you're right.
Okay, let's see. So I have a story for you today. This is called the Snowtown Murders, aka the Bodies in Barrels Murders, is how most people know it.
Bodies in barrels. Ooh, okay.
Yeah, it's an Australian story, so it's definitely more popular there. A lot of people, Case File covered this, and it was a very early episode for them, but he was saying he's always known it growing up in Australia, so it seems to be something that's more well known over there. This story was recommended by a listener named Jacqueline Bremner. So thank you, Jacqueline. I'm sure other people have, emailed it in, but that's the one we saw. So May 9th, 1999 is where we're going. We are in South Australia. And I also want to add, there are a lot of people and moving parts in the story. Okay. Like, it got confusing writing it down. So please ask me if you're like, who's that again? Or which one's that? Because it's very, very... There's a lot of people, and I tried to make it as simple as possible, but just let me know if you're confused about anything. So
got it.
The first two characters here are David Johnson, who's 24 years old, and his stepbrother, Jamie Vlasakis, who's 19. They are on their way to pick up an old computer. So as they arrive in a small town called Snowtown, which for context in 2006 had a population of 405, so very small town.
Oh, okay.
They pulled up outside an old brick building and went through a side door. Obviously thinking he's there to pick up a new computer, David never expected that instead he would be the final victim of a brutal series of murders called the Snowtown Murders.
Oh, shit. Okay. Yikes.
It would be about 2 weeks later that police arrived at said building, and the city of Snowtown's reputation would be tarnished forever. To the point... Sorry, I thought you were leaning in to say something.
I was just going to say, oh boy, for the millionth time. So I just decided to hold on to it.
Oh boy. Oh boy is right. So the town got such a bad reputation because of this that locals requested to change the town's name from Snowtown to Rosetown. Spoiler alert, the request was rejected, so it's still Snowtown.
Oh, okay.
Although the story ends in Snowtown, it begins in Adelaide, which is about a 2-hour drive south. So we're going to go there real quick. And this begins in 1992. So you find in Adelaide, 22-year-old Clinton Trezise. And Clinton had a tough childhood growing up, so he spent a lot of time hopping around foster care for a number of years. And by 1992, he had been fully settled in Adelaide and had recently made 2 friends.
Aww.
Now, this, yeah, cute. So this is where things get iffy online as far as the identity of people, the gender identity of people, pronouns. It gets very convoluted. So I just want to be clear and upfront here that some podcasts have had to take their episodes down because they were, I don't know the right word, confronted about the way they approach the story. So I'm going to try and do my best to cover this the most respectfully I can. So it's also very unclear. This was the early 90s, and there wasn't like...
So terminology's all fucked up?
Maybe, but there wasn't like any way for me to know how these people identified in 1992 because they weren't posting on LiveJournal or like sharing their pronouns on Instagram or anything. So it's mostly through the media, which obviously we know we can't necessarily trust how the media represents people in the LGBTQ community as far as identity. So it's very iffy. Basically,
I'll smack you around a little bit if something sounds
but the problem is that like we don't know, because that's the issue, is like we don't know if they identified one way or another. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's
well, then I guess I mean, if you're going off of sources, like the only sources that we've got, then I mean there's nothing else you can do.
So okay, here's what I'll tell you. So there was this friend that Clinton made named Barry Lane. That's what they were known as. However, they often went by Vanessa and
Okay.
were known to dress as a woman.
Okay.
However, he called himself a gay man. However, a lot of times he wanted people to call him Vanessa. So it was very unclear how some people used Vanessa, some people used Barry, I mean, in his own life. So it wasn't totally clear. I'm going to use they, them pronouns because it's so up for debate that I'm like, I don't
Sure.
want to decide for them.
Sure. I mean, yeah, it sounds like, I don't know. I don't even know what it sounds like.
Right. It's so confusing. And there's another person in here as well with the same kind of background. And so I'm going to use they, them pronouns for them as well because
what a headache. Oh, but I get it. I get why you're stressed, but also like, yeah, I'm sorry you have to go through this, but
it's a headache because
you want to you want to do them justice.
Well,
you want to identify them properly.
Of course, but it's also a headache because there are like 40 people in this story. So it's not like,
I see.
Oh, the two main characters are, they, them. It's like you have, there are like 40 different people involved. And so I'm trying to keep track of.
Well, also in terms of like political correctness too, like you want to make sure that you're not accidentally dead naming them while trying to let me know who you're talking about because nobody gave you the right information on what name they would prefer.
Right. And the last thing I want to do is use someone's dead name. But again, that's mostly what every article and source uses. So it's like, I either have to commit to using one name or the other. I'm going to use Vanessa because that is the one that, and you'll hear more about this, but I'm going to go with, well, for most of these people anyway, I use their last name. So that doesn't even really become an issue. But
good. Okay.
I'm going to use they, them pronouns to just make sure I'm not, deciding for anybody.
Sure.
So just want to put that out there. So Lane and Robert Wagner. Now they're a couple. So Clinton befriends this couple. Lane and Wagner is usually what I end up calling them, last names. So they'd been in a relationship since 1985 when Wagner was 13 and Lane was 28. Yeesh.
Oh, we found our controversial part here.
Our one controversial part. Yeah, no, this is the smallest element of this whole story that's controversial. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, 23 and 28
13 and 28. So yikes. Ooh, that's like you dating a 13-year-old.
I got it. That's a tough one to defend. That's a tough one to defend.
Yeah. So while Wagner was not super open with his sexuality and orientation, Lane was. According to Killer Queen's podcast, Lane was known to dress in women's clothing and go by the name Vanessa, but there was little information about whether they identified as a woman. There's debate online about the pronouns, but the website Trans Lives Matter uses they, them pronouns. So I think that's just what I'm going to go with.
Nice, safe bet.
I would say, right? Like,
yeah,
the one that's respecting them in the most.
I would think if anyone went by multiple names, you just didn't know what the best one was, just go by they, them, and last names, and
right. Easier. It's just rather than risk like
totally disrespecting them.
Yeah, totally disrespecting them. Exactly. So what Clinton, who is the guy who just befriended Lane and Wagner, what Clinton didn't know is that Lane and Wagner were actually members of a group of social misfits led by a total psychopath.
Oh, you had me in the first half. I was like, social misfits
makes it sound really innocent and like the freaking Little Rascals or something. But no, it's a lot more sinister than that.
Got it.
A lot more sinister than that. So in August of that year, Lane and Wagner invite Clint to their friend's house. Now, this friend is John Bunting, and spoiler alert, he's the psychopath.
Okay, got it.
So,
is he actually a psychopath?
That is what the sources tell me.
All right. Okay.
It is not me making up it's not me saying, oh, what a psycho. It's a legitimate term being used.
Wow, we're really just like almost offending everyone today.
Well, I mean, a psychopath is like, I'm not like saying, oh, he's just a psycho. I mean, it is an official terminology. So yes, that's John Bunting. Lane and Wagner invite Clint to their friend John Bunting's house on Waterloo Corner Road in the Adelaide suburb of Salisbury North. So Clinton is sitting in the lounge of the house when suddenly someone attacks him from behind, repeatedly hitting him on the back of the head with a shovel, not only fracturing his skull, but killing him on the spot.
Oh.
So welcome to the neighborhood. Oh. John Bunting, Lane, and Wagner drove his body north, buried him in a shallow grave. And it was a couple weeks later that Clinton's sister, Sherry, filed a missing persons report with police looking for her brother. And turns out the reason that these folks decided to murder Clinton is because they believed he was a pedophile.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I told you this is a big one. This is a landmine episode.
You were right. You were right.
I was like pulling my hair out earlier, trying to make sure I covered all my bases. So in conversations after his murder, his murderers remembered him by the name as Happy Pants. And to be clear, they thought he was a pedophile, believed he was a pedophile. Nobody ever gave any sort of evidence that he was a pedophile. This isn't like, they found out that he was, and so they killed him. This was like, they decided he was.
Just like random fucking hearsay. Just like.
Yeah. You'll see why. I mean, it all kind of comes out where that thinking stems from.
Okay.
You can probably guess, but anyway.
I have a hunch, but yes, let's go on.
So if you haven't guessed it, which I'm sure you have, Clinton's murder was orchestrated by our resident psychopath, John Bunting. This was the guy whose house they'd all gone to. And John lived with his wife, Veronica, at the house on Waterloo Corner Road where Clint had been murdered. John was someone who had always, not shockingly, seemed to have a pretty dark side to him. Growing up, he was known to collect chemicals and submerge insects into them to watch them die. As well, cute. As well as dig tunnels under his childhood house until his dad figured out what he was doing and stopped him because it was dangerous. But that's not something like I would do, dig tunnels under the house. I mean,
yeah, I want to know what the end goal was before I judge him.
Okay, valid point.
Was there treasure?
I'm like, that sounds fun.
Were we doing a little like escape room situation? Like, you know,
or is it like an escape room situation that I don't want to be a part of? Because then no thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So as a teenager, he got into Nazism, and that is where his hate of the queer community, or as he put it, gays and pedophiles, began. So that is where the whole kind of angle of, I'm deciding who is a pedophile and who's not, and then I will do my vigilante justice and kill them, is where that all came from.
And it's always a great place to start when you compare the two as one and say gays and pedophiles basically the same
thing, same difference, right? Exactly.
Great start.
So at age 22, Bunting worked in a slaughterhouse and reportedly bragged about slaughtering the animals, saying that's what he enjoyed the most. It was at the house on Waterloo Corner Road where he met his neighbors, Lane and Wagner. And you remember Lane and Wagner?
Yes, I'm saying, like, why, or is he doesn't like them, right? He's not going to like them.
No, they already murdered someone together. They murdered Clinton together.
Okay, got it.
That's part of the
thing,
the bigger issue. Yeah. So they are already friends, but this is just telling how they met. So he met his neighbors, Lane and Wagner, and they started to get on board with Bunting's outlook on life and his violent attitude toward the world. Like you were just basically suggesting, it's bizarre because 35-year-old Lane and 20-year-old Wagner are in what a lot of people that at that time considered a same-sex relationship. Either that or some sort of queer relationship that you would think a Nazi who's very anti-quote gay and pedophile would not be supportive of, right? So it was a little odd, but for Bunting, it was excusable because Wagner was Bunting's close friend and his partner in crime. And he was like, fine, if that's your partner that you choose, I'll allow it for now. So Wagner himself, he's the one who started dating Lane at age 13. So Wagner had a troubling childhood where his stepfather used to repeatedly beat him. He met Lane, like I said, and they began their relationship when he was only 13 and Lane was 28. Considering Bunting's mission to get rid of pedophiles, this is the other layer of this, is that Lane was a convicted pedophile. I mean, to be fair, he's having a relationship with a 13-year-old. So like, yeah, not surprising. But so Lane was a convicted pedophile. So on top of being queer, also was literally by law considered a pedophile.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, Bunting was just like, that's different. That's fine for now.
Yeah, that makes 0% chance.
Right.
Or 0% sense.
Yeah, it's all. Listen, I'm telling you, I don't think I ever really understood migraines until I did these notes. Okay. I was like, is this what a migraine is? When my skin hurts and I can't open my eyes, and oh my God. So Lane and Wagner, as I kind of suggested, shared a home near Bunting's house. So they were neighbors, and that's how they had met. And they were frequent visitors at Bunting's house because they were like super into his horrifying outlook on the world. And they also often brought along their friend Mark Hayden. So there are these four folks. They became fascinated with Bunting's sick obsession with cruelty and vengeance. And they all got on board and were like, you know what? Speaking of cults, they all got on board and were like, you're right. You're changing the world. You're making it a better place by getting rid of, quote, gays and pedophiles.
Yikes.
And we're in on it with you. We are jumping aboard. So yikes indeed. If you fast forward now to 1994, it's been 2 years since Clinton's murder. He was the one who had gotten hit with a shovel for just like coming over once.
Right.
So on August 16th of 1994, two farmers, unfortunately, well, I guess fortunately in that they found his body, they made a gruesome discovery. They found a shattered human skull and other human remains in a rural township called Lower Light. And it was Clinton's body, but unfortunately police wouldn't be able to identify him until 5 years later. So now we know who it was, but at the time they had no clue. And so it took 5 years for that to come out. So at the time of the body being discovered, Bunting, according to thecriminalcode.com, spent the greater part of 1994 investing in his new hobby. This is not good.
Uh-oh.
His hobby was killing and skinning cats and dogs. Okay.
Good night.
Moving on.
Good day.
I want to warn people. That's the end of that. Sometimes people write like, "Oh, I can tell by how quickly Christine says something about cats and dogs, like that it'll be over soon." So yeah, it's over. We're moving on.
We've ripped the Band-Aid. We ripped
off the Band-Aid. That's the end of animal cruelty. So he also continued to build up his group of social outcasts. So remember, he's like kind of cult-like, gathering these people who look up to him as their leader. So we've got Lane, we've got Wagner, who's Lane's partner. We have Hayden, their friend. And the last recruit, or the latest recruit, is a recent divorcee named Elizabeth Harvey. So she joins the group, and Elizabeth and Bunting begin a sexual affair. But remember, he's already married to his wife, Veronica.
Right.
So again, this just gets really convoluted. But basically, he starts having an affair with this new divorced woman who joins their group. So Elizabeth. This results in Elizabeth moving into Bunting's home in 1995. Presumably, Veronica's still there. So who knows? Just a fun gang of folks.
Super duper. Okay.
So she brings with her her two sons from previous marriages, and their names are Troy Udy, who's 18, and James or Jamie Vlasakis, who is 14. Okay. And now that name might sound familiar because Jamie Vlasakis is the one who, way up at the top of the notes, was with his friend David Johnson to pick up a computer when David became a victim, the last victim of the Snowtown murders.
I see where we're heading. Okay.
Yeah, it's not good. It's nowhere great. So sorry about that. So in what seems to be an unfortunate thread in the story, Troy and Jamie also had difficult traumatic upbringings. Jamie's birth father had sexually abused Troy growing up, which is thought to be part of the reason Troy in turn then sexually abused his younger brother, Jamie. Elizabeth wasn't necessarily bringing her sons into a healthy environment here either, because as David Johnson's, so that was the first victim up top who's getting a computer, his stepfather later described Bunting as not interested in sport. He had no hobbies. It just seemed that the sun rose and the sun set on pedophilia, and that would be virtually all he'd discuss. Jeez. So now this woman's having a relationship with him. She brings her two sons who've had a troubled background and are still really young into this house. And this is now the environment they're exposed to. Just like perfect storm mess. So Bunting unfortunately was able to get Jamie under his wing. Like he took him under his wing pretty quickly. So he became kind of his, like, I don't know, mentor.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
While Elizabeth and her sons are moving in not far from Bunting's house, a 26-year-old Ray Davies, who lives in a rented caravan, parked behind the house of 47-year-old Suzanne Allen, his landlady. So one day in 1995, Ray Davies, who was actually also a former lover of Suzanne's, I'm telling you, Em,
I'm sorry. I'm
so
trying.
headache inducing.
You weren't kidding, because you were like, oh, there's so many names. And I was like, okay, I got it. I'm on it. And then I'm just like, every time have barely filed one away, I'm opening up a new filing cabinet in my head.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. It's like files within files within files that are then attached to other files that are then linked back to another file. It's so messy.
Usually I love a good set of drama. Like
it is a lot of drama. You're right.
Walking into a lot, like a family drama, is usually very fun for me. This, because of its dark tendencies, no. And also I cannot keep up with everyone. It's like the Duggars all over again. Oh my God.
It is. Like, I'm asking you to do a lot here.
Think. You just need me to think.
No, I'm asking myself to do a lot because this is like so wildly convoluted.
Okay. So the most recent, there's Ray and Sue and his landlord, who he's also hooked up with before.
Yes, Suzanne, exactly. So Ray and Suzanne. So Ray hears frantic knocking on his door, and it's Suzanne, and she is furious, and she accuses Ray of molesting a child she knows, as well as making sexual advances toward her grandsons.
Oh.
So Ray is like, no, I did not do that, and protests his innocence, but she still goes off to tell the police, and guess who she bumps into along the way but good old Bunting from across the road. You know how Bunting feels about pedophiles.
I know how he feels about some pedophiles, not the ones that are his friends.
Quote unquote. Right. Literally. Exactly. So what Bunting hears from Alan, from Suzanne, is basically all the excuse he needs to justify his urge to kill a new victim, aka Ray. Because he's like, great, well, I've been wanting to kill somebody, and you're telling me Ray is potentially a pedophile? I'm on it. So
oh my God.
John captures Ray, binds and throws him into the trunk of a car. John and his peeps drive, his friends that live with him and hang out with him. They drive Ray to the bushland, which in Australia is typically like a blanket term for natural land that's only lightly settled, natural vegetation.
Okay.
And there they torture him before taking him back to Bunting's house, where he's tortured even more and ultimately strangled to death. And Elizabeth Harvey, the one who moved in and started an affair with him and brought her 2 sons.
Yeah.
She, his new girlfriend, is present during this murder as well, and has been basically fully indoctrinated that like he deserves it because he is a pedophile. So during the torture, Bunting encourages her to get involved. So she picks up a ceramic tool and like stabs him in the leg. So he's really just like pulling all these people into his like sick fantasy, by basically not to again pull QAnon in, but it's basically saying like, look, you're saving the world in this twisted way. Like you're ridding the world of pedophiles, but it's like, no, like none of this is proven. It's all like alleged,
Like we're all gathering together for this alleged thing that no one has confirmed.
But that also, you'll save the world.
And it's our responsibility, says no one
except
us.
Fully, okay. Exactly. And like Bunting says that it's okay and that we're doing the right thing. And so that's basically where they were. He must have been one charming mofo because he's just getting people to fall in love with him. He's getting friends to murder people for him. I mean, he must be a charming fella. So
I don't have friends that nice. I don't have friends who would listen to me that loyally.
Hell no. Me neither. No offense, Em, but no offense. So Ray's body is dumped and buried in a shallow grave in Bunting's backyard. I guess he couldn't even bother to drive out to the bushland to bury him. And even more tragically, Ray Davies was never reported missing, at least from what I could gather. So nobody even reported him missing. Now, guess who started to get turned on by this whole murder situation? It was Suzanne, Ray Davies' landlady / lover, who accused him of being a pedophile. Was like, actually, I'm like super into this.
What in the world?
I know. Oh my gosh, I know. And that's why I was saying like, and then on top of it, it was like, well, now you have to figure out how to reference people whose identities aren't totally clear, but you don't want to be disrespectful, and that's only like 2 small parts of this whole story where everyone's name is so confusing already. Anyway,
wow.
So basically,
what a topic to say. This is the one. This is the one we got to do.
Why?
So okay. So just so I have.
I think everyone needs this. Yes, please go
ahead. The thing I'm going to ask about is, so was Suzanne into the fact that people were pedophiles or that they were dying? That they're being killed?
She was really turned on by the murder of Ray.
Okay, that's what okay.
Yeah,
just wanted to
as were the other people in the group. I wouldn't necessarily say turned on, but they were all like on board with it. And
they were all mentally overstimulated by it. They were
fully
a little aroused in some way.
In some way, whether that was intellectually, spiritually, sexually, who knows?
Emotionally?
Maybe just emotionally. But yeah, so Suzanne was not even a part of this group, right? But then she finds out about this and is like, okay, I'm like super into that. I'm super into the fact.
I've been looking for a social circle.
My Mahjong group just isn't cutting it anymore. So I'm so glad I found you folks.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, now they have another member of their group. So this is where things so let's just keep going. So Suzanne then begins a sexual relationship with Bunting as well. So she's clearly turned on by the murder and by him. So now Bunting is sleeping with Suzanne and Elizabeth, and now he still has his wife, Veronica.
Wow,
so
poor Veronica. Let's
Veronica
girl, get it together.
Somewhere in the mix. I don't know where. She seems to drop off eventually, so maybe she makes it out of there, but
hopefully.
He now has this new lover, and it's Suzanne from across the road. And at this point, like I said, Bunting's married to Veronica, in a relationship with Elizabeth, and now in a relationship with Suzanne. However, Suzanne becomes obsessed with him to the point where her sexual advances start to annoy him.
Oh.
So guess what happens?
Does he fucking kill her?
She just like disappears. So
that's spooky.
Okay. What a weird coincidence.
Yeah.
So Suzanne is the one who accused Ray of being a pedophile, then got really turned on when he was murdered, then got obsessed with the guy who murdered him, then was disappeared when she became a little too clingy.
Yikes.
So after her family reported her missing, the police went to her home, and her place, which was normally pretty neat and tidy, had been fully trashed. And the two people who knew where she was were John Bunting, of course, and Robert Wagner, his partner in crime. It was later discovered that her body had been dismembered, wrapped in 11 garbage bags, and buried in Bunting's backyard.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh no.
It's like so extra and horrific. So initially the police didn't even think this had anything to do with foul play because all they saw was the messy apartment. So Suzanne was just reported missing, and Bunting would later claim, this was his later attempt at sounding innocent. He later claimed he had found Suzanne dead in her bed after she suffered from a heart attack. And it was only then that they decided to dismember her and put her in 11 trash bags and bury her in the backyard.
I was going to say like, oh, you found her dead and you went, aha, I know what's next.
I know what to do. I got this. Don't worry.
It's like I've seen this nowhere before. I know exactly what to do next. That's
I've seen
terrible.
This on my own YouTube channel that I invented because nobody else on the planet has ever had this thought before. Yeah. Like so sick and twisted. So his excuse was like, no, she was already dead. That's why I dismembered her and put her in 11 trash bags. It's like,
don't you see? Can't you see?
Now, I see where the miscommunication happened. That doesn't really excuse you, well, in my opinion, from anything, but who am I to say? So they dismembered her either way and began collecting her Social Security payments. So not great. And in 1996, Bunting, Elizabeth Harvey, one of his lovers, and her two sons, Troy and James, moved to live in a town called Murray Bridge, around 100 kilometers away. And there's no mention of Veronica, so we're assuming she just kind of didn't show up, didn't come. I was
like,
them.
Let's pray that she actually left and isn't also somewhere in 11 trash bags.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's hope she like stayed, but not in a dead way. In like a, I'm gonna start a new happy life way.
Like she stayed in like a, I'm gonna grab my keys and just casually go to the gas station and then
out of the
never
door.
Come back. Yeah.
And get a new job and a new life and live happily ever after.
New identity. Yeah.
New identity. So hopefully that's what happened, because Veronica just kind of like poof out of the picture, which we can only hope for the best. But so his other two are gone now. So Veronica's gone and Suzanne is in some trash bags. So he and Elizabeth and her two sons move to a different town. And unfortunately, this is not the end. I know it sounds like, oh, happily ever after. Nope. This is just, he's just getting started with his whole his whole mission, quote unquote. So he still keeps in close contact with his BFF, Robert Wagner. And in this new house, I guess maybe he got it on Wayfair. I don't know. He has this like crime wall where it's like basically the cliche like red string. Like,
like a sunny, like always
like
sunny.
It's always sunny red string crime wall. And he calls it the rock spider wall. Now I will explain that.
Okay, please do, because
I didn't get it.
You had me at red string wall. That's all I needed.
Yeah. So basically, it was a bunch of pictures connected by red string, and a rock spider is actually a term for a prisoner sent to jail for pedophilia. So he created this like pedophile mind map thing. And this is how he decided he was going to track all these people that he was, quote, after for their quote unquote sins that he's making up.
Gotcha.
So all the names on the wall were people that Bunting has deemed child molesters, even if there was not any actual evidence.
Oh, fun. So it's a wall of pictures of people.
It's a wall of pictures of random people that he's decided deserve
targets.
Torture and murder, for no reason. It's pretty wild. So yeah, it's like a bad episode of Criminal Minds where you're like, this doesn't have much sense to it, but like this is actually what happened.
Just fucking bananas.
It's bananas.
Wow. Okay.
So he now has this fun wall. Apparently sometimes he would even, this is not a joke, find a name at random in the phone book and call them and just start accusing them and abusing them over the phone.
Oh, so this person is actually not mentally
I think he's like thoroughly unhinged at this point, because he's literally randomly deciding that people that he's never met are.
I was gonna say, it's like, it's one thing if like you are completely wrong, but you had some sort of reason to think it, versus, oh, I'm just gonna call you because I don't like how your fucking name sounds. You must be a pedophile.
Like, you spell Ashley weird, so I'm gonna give you a call and I've decided that you're a pedophile. Exactly. It's like so nonsensical. Like there's no connection at all. And so even the people where in the beginning it was like, oh, Suzanne accused him of being a pedophile, it's like, okay, he took it too far in his thinking, obviously.
Like he wanted a reason and someone gave it to him, but this time no one's given him reasons. He's
creating reasons. Yeah, exactly. Like nobody's even giving him a breadcrumb to follow. He's just inventing it. And well, we'll get to it, but I was like, and meanwhile, Lane is like literally a convicted pedophile and has been left alone this whole time, but whatever, we'll get to it. So he called people up occasionally just to be like, hey, you're a pedophile. And they were like, this is Macy's. Can I help you? Okay.
Sir, this is a Wendy's.
Sir, this is a Wendy's. Please, we don't serve whatever you're asking for.
Oh my gosh.
At the center
of Macy's.
I don't know why that was the first fucking business I could think of. I don't know. I don't know
why that was so funny, but it really just is the exact opposite of like pedophilia, which, by the way, they should use as a slogan. Basically, the exact opposite.
I've heard they're having some financial trouble in the 21st century. Maybe they should hire me as their marketing consultant.
Like Kohl's, it's like, we got Kohl's cash. Macy's, we don't have pedophiles. So like,
come on in.
We're equally great, if not better.
We were not on the rock spider wall, and I think that's saying something.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Why is it called the rock spider wall?
I told you, because rock spider is a term for a prisoner sent to jail for pedophilia.
Right. Okay.
It's a pedophile mind map, Em. Come on. Get with the program.
It's a mind map. You can only get it at Macy's.
Labor Day sale. Yeah. It's very... Now I'm just shouting out things about department stores.
I'm just thinking of like all those commercials where it just says BOGO.
BOGO. Oh no.
Okay, we're sorry. Macy's, don't sue us, please.
Macy's, we know that you only have the best intentions in mind. So basically he had this rock spider wall, and at the center of the rock spider wall was one person. Do you have a guess as to which of the
CEO
above?
of Macy's? Who?
Do you have a guess as to who in the above may be his new target? Since
no, because I lost total. I
Yeah,
lost
this
all
is a
reasoning.
meme. This is a meme pop quiz.
Is it Wagner or
It's
Lane?
Lane, yeah,
Okay.
the ex-partner of Wagner. So Vanessa
Oh.
Lane, Wagner's now ex-partner, who had been fundamental in that first murder of Clinton.
Right.
Now that they're broken up, Wagner and Lane, now they're the center of the rock spider wall because they're not off limits anymore. I'm not really sure, but now suddenly Lane is target number one. And by spring of 1997, Bunting decides it's time to kill again. Now, we're not at Lane yet. So Lane is like the epitome of this whole plot. But his next victim is actually 19-year-old Michael Gardner was the name that is mostly used. However, there are a lot of debates on this because they also went by Michelle Gardner. And another person.
And we have no idea how they actually identified. So
no,
there's no
very
way of
unclear
knowing if there's a dead name or they're both valid names. Okay.
Exactly. Because oftentimes it was written that they were an outwardly gay man who was very open about it, but also went by Michelle, but also it's just a lot of conflicting info out there.
Okay.
So I'm just going to go again with the website Trans Lives Matter, who use they, them pronouns for Michelle. So I'm just going to use that to be as careful as possible. So Michelle was close with their landlady, Nicole Zarita. So they rented out one of the rooms in Nicole's place, and the two of them had a great relationship. They'd even like paint each other's fingernails and dress up together, just like very close. It's all these landladies are like befriending their tenants. It's a little strange to me.
They're having really intimate relationships.
Really intimate. You're right. Whether it's sexual or like slumber party, it's like, wow.
It's like, I don't do that with, the only thing I do with my landlord is make Allison scream at her about our fucking roaches and roommates or
I don't even have
neighbors.
Like slumber parties with my own friends anymore. I'm like, how do you find time to have a slumber party with your landlady? But okay. I guess if you live in the same building, it's easier. So like I said, Michelle was friends with the landlady, Nicole. They had a great relationship. And now this is a sentence that I italicized because I was like, I need to say this clearly because it's really kind of confusing. So Nicole is the landlady. Nicole's cousin, Vicky, lives nearby and is having an affair with Robert Wagner, who is Lane's ex-partner.
This is like my hometown in terms of like drama and everyone knowing each other and it being weirdly incestuous.
Oh God, yeah.
Okay, so the landlord, the one who's having the weird sleepover with their cousin is now dating Wagner.
Right.
After they broke up with Lane.
Yeah, so Wagner had broken up with Lane. Right, exactly. And Wagner's now dating this woman named Vicky, who's cousins with Nicole, the landlady, who has a tenant named Michelle Gardner.
I do 90% get what you're saying.
Okay. It's like I 80% get what I'm saying. So I'm glad you understand.
Okay, well, A+, I guess, is what I'm getting then if I'm smarter than you on something.
Not finally. I think we've all seen this from day one, but thanks.
I think my high interest in drama and like listening to other people's stories, and when I say drama, I mean drama I am not affiliated with, but like my high interest
kind of drama.
Yeah, my favorite thing to do is like people watch, but only dramatic people, and like so I have been practicing for a long time.
You're like
to be
primed
able to keep
for
up.
this setup, this web. Yeah,
I'm loving the debate, or not the debate, the interaction amongst everyone. So
I mean, maybe I should create my own rock spider wall and just like put everybody's face. You know what I mean?
I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like that wouldn't be wildly helpful.
I think it would be extremely helpful, but unfortunately, I'm not gonna do it. So. My bad.
Okay.
I do not have the time for that. If you have the time to print out all those photos, you can send them to me and we'll figure it out.
We'll do a family tree on Ancestry or something. And
oh God.
Branch everyone off.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is essentially that Michelle got roped into this whole crowd inadvertently by accident because they were living in Nicole's building and Nicole's cousin was dating Robert Wagner. So
I got it.
Basically, it was inevitable that Bunting would hear about Michelle, who lived in this building and not surprisingly did not approve of their lifestyle.
Right.
Quote unquote, I want to say lifestyle,
Right.
as they had put it. So it was just inevitable for them to cross paths because so-and-so was dating so-and-so's cousin and, you know, whole deal. So one day, an incident involving one of Vicky's children pushed Vicky, who's dating Wagner, pushed Vicky and Wagner into a rage. They'd apparently come home to see Michelle chasing Mill's excited kid around the room, which was all fun and games. However, Vicky and Robert got angered when Michelle playfully caught the kid and accidentally put their hand over the kid's mouth while trying to grab him. And Wagner and Mills decided this was sinister and that Michelle was a pedophile also.
Yeah, I was
We all
wondering
saw
about
that
that
coming.
Yep.
There was
Okay.
bound to happen.
Yep.
So when Nicole went on a trip soon after this event, obviously Wagner has told Bunting all about this because they're BFFs and partners in crime and like literal partners in crime. So Bunting and Wagner decide to make their move when Nicole, the landlord, is out of town because now it means Michelle is at home alone.
Got it.
So Michelle, this is horrible, is abducted and taken to the shed behind Bunting's house where they are tortured and strangled to death. Their body was dismembered, limbs thrown into an acid-filled barrel that they just casually had lying around the shed. You know how you do. Of course. So Bunting and Wagner then broke into Nicole's house and searched for Michelle's wallet to access their bank details, but they couldn't find it anywhere. Because of course they want the money immediately because they were taking like social security payments from the other people they've killed. So they're like, well, let's get their wallet.
Oh my gosh.
They took all of Michelle's belongings and some of Nicole's to make it look like Michelle had ransacked the place and left and fled. So they wanted Nicole to come home from her trip and walk in and go like, oh shit, Michelle took all my stuff and ran, which is pretty much what happened. So Nicole got home, was totally shaken, but was like, okay, I guess they left with my stuff. However, Nicole eventually finds Michelle's wallet under the bed. And Nicole's like, that's odd, because if Michelle was leaving, why would they leave without their wallet?
Right.
Strange. So in passing conversation, Nicole tells Wagner, hey, it's really weird. You know how like Michelle had left me behind? Well, they also left their wallet. Isn't that odd? And remember, Wagner was like part of the team trying to find this wallet. So they're like, ding, 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 it exists. So after hearing this and wanting to access Michelle's money, Bunting gets his crew to start calling Nicole up in an attempt to convince her that they are friends of Michelle's and Michelle wants their wallet back.
Oh, God.
So
God, okay.
So she refuses, saying like, fine, if Michelle wants their wallet, they can come and get it.
Exactly.
Especially because she's also thinking, Michelle took all my shit and left. Like, no way. Like, they can come bring my stuff back and get their wallet and we'll trade, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Got it. Okay. I'm liking that person so far.
Like, makes sense. Yeah. They're like, why on earth would I come meet you for this wallet if they ransacked my home and like peace out? Like, they can get their wallet. So obviously they're frustrated because they're like, well, shit, we need to find a way to get this wallet. Obviously Michelle's gone, so we can't use them to get it. There was even a part. What?
Nothing. I think I figured out what's going to happen.
Oh, do tell, because I'm already like trying to remember.
Are they going to dress up as them and
no
sneak in? Oh, okay.
No.
I don't know if this was like a little rascals, like a bunch
trench
of people
coat situation.
Yeah.
Fortunately, no fun visuals like that. But Nicole started getting more and more calls claiming the urgency of getting this wallet back, along with a bizarre call from someone claiming to be Michelle, which she's like, I know that's not Michelle. Bye.
Right.
Like, leave me alone.
At that point, I would just not trust any single Michelle related phone call. I'd be like, okay,
is going on. And that's pretty much what happens, because eventually Wagner somehow convinces her to just hand it over, because at this point I'd be like, okay, there's something going on here. Like, I don't want this wallet anymore. You know, why would you want to be involved? I'd be like, fine, take the wallet, which is pretty much what happens. So they get hold of this wallet. Okay, all's happy. So while all this is happening, Vanessa Lane, John's big target, primo target on the rock spider wall, gets a new boyfriend, Thomas Trevelyan. Now, Thomas is a teenager. Again, yikes. A teenager with a developmental disability. Apparently only wore army clothes, used to go outside and like scare the neighbors with screaming and antics. I don't know. A lot of interesting stuff about this Thomas. But basically, Thomas and Lane start dancing. Oh my God, dating.
What?
Maybe
Okay, I was
dancing.
like, they just got nothing. They're feeling it. It's like, is this town Footloose? I'm confused.
It's a really, really sinister version of Footloose. If so, it is. Yeah, I'm sorry. My brain synapses are not firing anymore. So
Your
I have
brain
to
was like, please God, give us like a positive light here. And they just started dancing.
Yeah, my brain was
like
like,
it was
anything?
High School Musical. Like
They broke out in song and everything went back to normal.
They thought the only way to cure this was through dance, and dance they did.
Maybe it was, because nothing gets cured. So maybe that was the clue all along. But unfortunately, nobody tries it. Instead, they start dating. And this target around Lane is getting larger and larger for Bunting. He's becoming more and more obsessed with killing Lane, even more so than usual, because now Bunting has heard that Lane has been talking to people about Bunting's activities. So now he's getting word that like Lane's gossiping about Bunting's interests, aka murdering people. So
yes.
Bunting has now built this entire narrative that every pedophile is somehow linked to Lane, and that he needs to stop Lane because that will kind of stop the swell of pedophilia that he's allegedly linked to. It's really
what a bananas. Theory. What? Yeah, that's just like that's a thread that just came out of nowhere. Like, well, I guess in his own wild mind.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's calling up people in the phone book and just deciding they're pedophiles. And
but it's almost like there's like a network of pedophiles and they all come back to Lane.
Yeah, that's what he's basically told himself. And I mean, to be fair, Lane's the only person so far that's actually a convicted pedophile. So in that way, there is some sense
amongst the characters in this story that makes the most sense to pin it on this one person.
Yeah, and sense is a very relative term.
Yeah,
obviously in this scenario, but it's at least like, okay, this guy actually was technically a convicted pedophile. So
this is the only person that like you're not just like looking through a phone book and guessing,
making it up. Yeah, or with like no evidence. Exactly. So basically Bunting is deciding like, I need to stop Lane. That's what's gonna be the next best thing for this world. So in 1997, Bunting and his crew, including Lane's boyfriend Thomas Trevelyan, the teenager that I mentioned, burst in on Lane, subdued and tortured them. And this time, to get rid of a potential trace, Bunting forces Lane to make a call to their mother prior to the murder in order to explain their sudden disappearance. So this is really horrifying. In the call, Lane told their mother they were moving to Queensland and wanted nothing to do with her.
Oh my God.
Isn't that like just so fucked up?
Oh my God. That's awful.
It's awful. So they tortured Lane, you're not going to like this, by crushing their toes with pliers. Okay,
Fuck
the end.
Fuck you.
The end.
Absolutely not, Christine Schaefer. Absolutely not. Oh no, I'm nervous laughing. That's not funny.
It's not. It's certainly not.
With just the toes or toes and fingers?
Well, since you're asking, it says
both
toes and nails. So I don't know. I know you asked. I'm sorry.
Take my breath away.
I did already.
God. That is, I mean, no matter what they were going to do, it was going to be terrible. But that personally is horrific.
Yes, agreed. That's why Em and I don't often like to bring torture into the scenario, because it really, 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 really is rough. Obviously, that's the fucking understatement of the century, but
that is beyond. That's
I don't like talking about that kind of
terrible
thing. Yeah. So tortured them before strangling them to death. Then they wrapped their body up in carpet, left Lane in the house for a few days, and then took them to Bunting's shed, where they were dismembered and put into an acid-filled barrel. So now this MO is becoming clearer, and you're seeing why it's called the Bodies in Barrels Murders.
Yes.
10 days after Lane's murder, one of their friends reported them missing. However, because of the fake call to Lane's mother, police believe Lane had just moved to Queensland, and they're like, well, there's not much we can do. It's an adult who left.
You know what? Sorry, I did not mean to totally interrupt you.
Go ahead.
You know what's specifically awful about this story compared to the others, which they're all terrible.
Right.
But Lane was involved in these previously.
Yeah.
So they knew what was coming. Like they knew what was going to happen in some way.
Like they were part of earlier murders and tortures, which is just like,
well, the other victims too, I imagine, were like, maybe there's a chance I'm going to get out of here. But Lane was probably like,
oh, true. Lane was like, no one's ever gotten out because I was part of it. Yeah. Good point. Good point. Because of that phone call to Lane's mom, police were like, well, there's not much we can do, which I actually do kind of understand because Lane's an adult and left a message, or at least called their mom and said like, oh, I'm moving. Yeah. So like, it's hard, you know, even if it's suspicious, I feel like that's probably a hard thing to investigate. So Thomas Trevelyan, the teen, has now moved in with Robert Wagner and Wagner's girlfriend, Vicky. So he soon confides in one of his cousins that because he was involved in Lane's murder, he's now concerned for his own safety, just like you were saying, being like, right, well, Lane was also part of the gang, now is dead. Now I'm part of the gang. Am I in trouble?
No one's safe.
No one's safe. And honestly, it's really kind of tragic because it's almost like he wrote his own destiny, because it was when Bunting heard that Trevelyan was like talking to people about how worried he was that they were like, great, well now we got to get rid of him because he's talking too much and he's telling people what we did. And he became suspicious that Trevelyan was confiding in people, which was exactly what he was doing. And so Bunting and Wagner were like, okay, well, got to get rid of this guy too.
And that's so wild. I mean, it's like, it's just another part of the, I don't even know, the thought process, I'm going to say in quotes, that Bunting had of that, like some people who were actually convicted of things like this, they're going to help you hurt other people you're claiming have done these things. But then those people are safe until all of a sudden they realize for you that they could also be responsible for the claims. Like, it's like you were going to let the actual, not that you should be hurting anybody, but you were going to let those people off until they reminded you, hey, by the way, you're being a hypocrite, you know?
Yeah. Or like, hey, with that logic, I should be in danger. And they're like, you know what? You're right. You should be in danger. Like, it's like you're writing your own. I mean, it's so fucked up. Yeah, exactly. Terrible. And I mean, this is the guy who one of his lovers got too clingy and he killed her. So like, it's not even like
no rhyme or reason
anyway. Right. Like there's no rhyme or reason anyway, but yeah, this is like extra rough. They decide that Trevelyan needs to go. So they took advantage of his troubled background and his disability, and they staged a suicide. The police found, or somebody found, him hanging in a tree in the Adelaide Hills in November of 97, and it would take years before the police figured out it was anything other than a suicide because all signs pointed to him having, you know, mental instability. He had a diagnosed disability. It just added up for them, and it wasn't for years that they realized this was linked to these other deaths. So by early 1998, a now 17-year-old Jamie, that's one of the kids of Elizabeth that she had brought along.
Right, the one with the computer thing in the beginning of the story.
Yes, precisely. So Jamie is still living in John Bunting's house with his mother, and unfortunately, Jamie has since become addicted to heroin, and he decides it's a good idea to invite his friend Gavin to move in. Like, why is anyone moving into this house? But okay. So Bunting excuses Jamie's heroin use. However, he despises Gavin Porter for being a, quote, junkie. So when Gavin moves
so it's again, like you're just like
very selective.
Yeah, it's very selective because you're just ignoring other people with the exact same issue you don't like other people for.
Which is exactly what points to almost this doesn't have anything to do with actual vigilantism or logic. It's just like, I don't like this guy, so he deserves it. Yeah,
it's like that's exactly it. It's just
that's the only logic. Yeah. So he despises Gavin for being a, quote, junkie. And what it took for him to freak out was that he accidentally pricked himself on a needle that Gavin had left around the house. So he flew into a rage, decided that Gavin was his next victim. And one day when Jamie was away, Bunting finds Gavin asleep in the back of a car. Not sure how that happened, but at this point, nothing surprises me. And Wagner, so Bunting's brought Wagner along again, and the two of them pounce. They beat, torture, and murder Gavin. His body's dismembered and put into another barrel full of acid in the garage.
Where's all this acid coming from?
That's what I want to know. We don't even know what kind of acid it is.
Just like, what are you doing? Are you doing these next to barrels of acid on purpose, or are you doing these things and then you're like, oh look, another barrel of acid? Like,
oh look, where did that come from?
And it makes me wonder too, because then I'm like, is your MO intentional or is it coincidental that like you just happen to always be near acid, you know? It's got to be on purpose.
It's very like Acme anvil from
Yeah.
like a cartoon. It's like, well, that's a weird coincidence that an anvil is falling off this cliff.
What are all these pianos doing in the sky?
Exactly. Where are these barrels of acid coming from? Instacart? I don't know where you can get one, but I've never been able to find one on my own. So now they have another body in the barrels in the garage in the acid. So when Jamie returns, being like, hey, where's my friend Gavin? Bunting takes him to the shed to show him what has happened. And there on the floor lie the limbs of his murdered friend Gavin. Oh, the limbs are still there. Don't worry. Then the shock continues when Bunting lifts one of the barrel lids, revealing the remains of Lane and Michelle Gardner as well. So they're like, oh, you think that's horrifying? Well, look at what else we did. So Jamie hurls everywhere.
As you should.
As you should. It's the only logical, like, A to B thing that's happened so far in this whole story.
So, yeah, it took this long, and now I'm, like, catching up. I'm like, aha, yeah, that checks out.
Body parts, puke, makes sense. So he hurls everywhere, but he's so scared that he agrees, basically by force, to become Bunting's wingman. Because Bunting's like, well, it's basically a threat. Like, this will happen to you. This happened to your friend and to people you've known since you were a child. And guess what? It can happen to you too. So basically by August 1998, Bunting has decided that Jamie should get his first taste of murder. And he's like, who would be a perfect victim for this? How about his half-brother Troy, who had sexually abused him when they were younger?
Because Troy is a pedophile to him and gay, right?
Yes. Well, at least a pedophile, or at least he thinks it's an easy way to convince Jamie, like, hey, this guy hurt you in childhood, you should kill him. And that's at least an easy way for him to get into this whole game.
It's like someone without the ability to have rational thinking at this point, trying to be rational.
Totally. Yeah. Totally. Like, this makes sense. Yeah. I guess. So that's what they do. And yeah, I guess that's true too. Like, there's that element of pedophilia in it. I mean, they were both children, but there's that element of like child molestation. And again, like, this was a bigger story as far as like Troy was molested by his father. And so it's like a big horrifying circle. But so they arrange a trip where Bunting, Jamie, Wagner, and Hayden. Yeah, we haven't heard about Mark Hayden in a while, but he's still around.
Where's this guy been? Did he run off with Veronica?
I know, maybe he's with Veronica. So they all go to visit Troy, the brother of Jamie. In the night, they enter his bedroom, forcefully drag him to the bathroom, torture him, tape record his voice, a recording which would later be known as Voices of the Dead, which is like, what a creepy thing to name it, before murdering him. And even when his half-brother is lying dead, Bunting orders Jamie to kick the body, which he does. He then helps him carry Troy to the car, where he's transported back to Bunting's house, thrown in a barrel full of acid. You know the drill.
I get it. At this point, I'm starting to finally understand all this stuff.
It's starting to write itself. So Jamie gets access to his brother's Social Security benefits, uses it to get more drugs. There are now 8 people dead, just in case you need a tally. And all police have are a number of missing persons reports and Social Security frauds. So they're like not being able to connect all of these together. So Bunting's gang seems to be unstoppable. I'm sure in their own eyes, that's what they were. And they've fully lost any compass of morality, if there ever was one, any compass of like rationale or even their own twisted sense of morals. Like, they are all over the place. I mean, they killed Elizabeth Harvey's son. Remember, Troy was also the son of Elizabeth, who's like his lover and lives with him. Or at this point, his girlfriend, I guess, his partner, and lives with him. So they just like killed her kid, even though it was for a quote reason. Like, it's still just all over the place. So Bunting's latest issue is that Mark Hayden's wife is now annoying him.
Okay.
What an issue to have. Am I right?
Yeah.
He decides she has to go as well, but not before he targets her 18-year-old nephew, Fred. Listen,
what the fuck did Fred do?
I'm telling you. So Fred had actually helped out in calling Nicole to claim Michelle's wallet. So Fred had actually been involved and had been part of the scheme to get Michelle's wallet, had helped out with the crime.
And on the quote,
and on
right
Bunting's side, had tried to help get the wallet back, was like fully on their side, but he was just an easy target.
Oh my
And at this point,
God.
they don't need any other reason than I want to kill someone, and he's there.
It's
So,
just, I mean, truly, it's just like because. is
just
the answer.
because. Yeah, because I
Right.
want to kill someone. So with Jamie still as his accomplice on September 17th, 1998, Bunting tortures Fred Brooks. Lit cigarettes are placed in his nose. Yeah. A cigarette lighter is used to burn a smiley face into his forehead. And this is the worst part. A sparkler is inserted into his penis. Okay, next. So anyway, Fred,
lit sparklers,
yeah,
like fireside,
like
in.
a crackly one. Eek! I can't. I mean, I don't have that part. I don't have those parts, but yikes. I can only imagine.
I don't know what to do. That's
Me neither.
really, really, really.
It's just like
horrible.
next level. Like, how do you even come up with this shit? You know?
That poor. I mean, poor all of them. But like the fact that like that. Like I've never even had that thought. Like I can't wrap my head into something that dark and twisted. But then to know that not only would it be a random thought, but someone else had that thought, acted on it, and that was someone's last memory.
Yeah,
Jesus
well,
fucking Christ.
One way to put it. Bummer Central.
Fuck.
So, yeah. So tortured him clearly, pretty thoroughly. And then they took his body to his uncle Mark's house, Mark Hayden, where the other barrels had since been taken for storage. And he joins the lovely collection that Bunting is building of barrels, acid-filled barrels with bodies in them.
How many barrels are there per? How many bodies are there per barrel at this point? Do we know?
Oh, that's a great question.
Because like I've only heard, I think of like 3 or 4 barrels, but there's like now like almost 10 people.
So some of them were buried in shallow graves. This was before the barrels came into the picture.
Okay.
The first person to be put in the barrel was Michelle,
Okay.
I believe. And then it was Lane. And then it was Gavin.
Got it. Not that it fucking matters.
No, but you're right. I mean, it's like trying to get a grasp on this whole, their MO. So they take Brooks' benefits and start taking his Social Security benefits. Just a few weeks later in October, Bunting and Jamie are in their car when they spot a man named Gary O'Dwyer crossing the road. They notice he has a limp, and it turns out that Gary was a victim of a car accident. Either way, Bunting decides that Gary might be a recipient of a disability pension, and he was right.
Jesus.
So, wanting that disability pension, Bunting rouses a scheme to get him and the gang invited to Gary's house. They set this up, and when they're invited over for drinks, Bunting gives the signal, which is just standing up. And at that point, Wagner grabs O'Dwyer from behind and starts to choke him. They beat him up, torture him, get his financial details, and record his voice for posterity's sake, all before strangling him to death and then dismembering him and storing him in another barrel.
Fuck. I mean, so at this point, we can just call this guy a serial killer, right? Or a serial group.
Oh, wholly, fully, thoroughly a serial killer, yes.
In my mind, I don't know why, because this is not what I don't think this is how serial killers are defined. It's the lack of rhyme or reason that makes me want to recategorize them. Like I was trying to follow it for a while of like, oh, they're a group of people who, you know, make wild claims. They're not even making claims anymore. They're just like, this is, I just want to kill you.
They just know they're getting away with it. So
yeah. Okay. I don't know where I was really going with my point, but got it. I'm officially in serial killer zone.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're at like, I think this is the 9th.
Yeah,
victim.
that does it.
Yeah, I think we've reached the threshold that the FBI gives. Yeah.
Isn't the threshold like once you've hit 5 or something?
So it's 3. So it's it varies, but it's typically 3, but not at the same time, because that would, you know,
just be a mass murder.
Yeah, or that would eliminate like a family annihilator or something like that.
Okay.
But it's 3, I believe, separate instances. Hold on.
I shouldn't have put you on the spot like that.
No, it's a good question.
I always thought it was once you hit 5 individual murders that made you a serial killer.
So there's definitely back and forth about what the actual number is, but typically it's 3. So let's see. A serial killer is typically a person who murders 3 or more people, usually in service of abnormal psychological gratification, with the murders taking place over more than a month and including a significant period of time between them.
Interesting. That's
So,
weird. That makes it feel like if you did it 3 times in 2 weeks, it doesn't technically apply because it was less
yeah,
than
I
a
think
month.
it's like I think that's like the typical, because if you were like, oh, I'm gonna kill all my friends, or not all my friends, I don't know why I said it like that, but like if I were gonna kill I don't know. I think it depends. I think it isn't like strictly,
It's more like if it
it's
were
a guideline maybe.
sure. I don't know. This is not totally pertinent to the story. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, it is. I mean, they're clearly serial killers, but essentially they should be separate events and 3 or more people is
Got it.
typically like the definition.
Fun fact, everyone.
Fun fact. So his body is dismembered. This is Gary, who had the disability pension. So after the deaths of Fred, the nephew, and Gary, the random guy on the street, Bunting now decides it's time for Elizabeth Harvey to die.
The woman he was sleeping with.
Oh wait, no, sorry. I miswrote that. I thought I had miswritten that. Not Elizabeth Harvey. Sorry, Elizabeth Hayden, Mark's wife. That was annoying him. There's 2 Elizabeths. I'm sorry. I got them mixed up with the H last name. Elizabeth Harvey is his GF, is Bunting's GF, and Elizabeth Hayden is his
Mark's
pal
GF.
Mark's wife, who's annoying, I guess.
Who already just killed his nephew, and
yeah, and just killed his nephew. Right, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So they decide. I'm sorry, that was my bad. I wrote it wrong.
No, you're good.
It's time for Elizabeth Hayden to die. Interestingly, she would be his only cis female victim. Fun fact.
Fun fact.
On November 20th, 1998, while Mark, her husband, was away, she was attacked and murdered by Bunting. And although Mark was away, he later assisted in covering up his wife's murder. So when he got home, he helped them cover it up, which is like, just shows you how deep in they were into Bunting's like fucked up headspace. So she was reported missing by her brother the following day at 3 p.m. because he was like, I didn't believe Mark's explanations for why she had disappeared. And upon receiving the brother's missing persons report, police find it suspicious that Elizabeth's own husband had not reported her missing, but her brother had.
Right.
So they decide to investigate. Because Elizabeth was closely linked to all of her murderers, they all fell under close scrutiny of the police. And the police installed a listening device in Mark Hayden's house, and that becomes pivotal in the unraveling of the case. Okay. So those recordings were later used as court evidence, and during this time, the gang even claimed another victim, David Johnson, all orchestrated by Jamie. This was the computer. This is full circle of Jamie orchestrated the next murder, which was convincing his friend that they were going to pick up a computer at a building, and then David thinks that's exactly what they're doing. They walk into the building and David becomes, but like I said earlier, the last victim of the Snowtown murder. So this is our final victim, David Johnson. And this was at the hand of Jamie, who kind of walked him right into this situation. And it would be later revealed that with the final murder, Bunting and Wagner, they thought like, let's level up and cook and eat some of this guy. So
so we are really escalating ourselves.
Why not?
Okay. So cannibalism is taking into effect.
Suddenly
at the very
that's
end of this.
Thrown right into the mix is some cannibalism. So they cooked and eat it. No clue what they thought, but soon discovered by police that John Bunting is renting out an abandoned bank building in Snowtown. And they're like, that's interesting. Maybe we should check what's there. He had rented it as somewhere to move the bodies once he suspected the police might be onto him. So they tracked down the bank building, arrived at the site, and are immediately repelled by a horrible, horrible stench. In one of the rooms, they find a couple barrels. Can you imagine being the one who has to open those?
Yeah, I'm living it in my mind right now, and I just can't even imagine.
Ooh, shivery.
Oof, oh my God.
So they open the barrels, and ta-da! They find body parts of what would turn out to be 8 people.
Wow.
It is for this reason the case is sometimes known, like I said, as the Bodies in Barrels murders. And fun fact, in a documentary by Crime Investigation Australia, an investigator says, this is actually kind of fascinating, it is also possible that the barrels filled with acid by the killers was used to try and destroy evidence, but the killers were too stupid to realize they were actually preserving the bodies. The bodies sort of looked mummified. The wrong acid was used. The bodies were put into hydrochloric acid, which doesn't dissolve human tissue. Should they have been put into sulfuric acid, they would have been dissolved. So these bozos think they're getting rid of evidence, and instead they're preserving it.
It's good to know. Good to know.
It's good to know.
If in trivia I'm asked about acid and getting rid of body evidence, now I know. And I always, actually, because I've never killed anyone, I had no idea that that different acids did different things. I know it's so stupid, but I've just never thought about
you're right.
it.
I mean, it does make some sense in that, like, you can like pickle things, which preserves
Yeah,
them, versus
that's
like
so true. I've never spent enough time thinking about it, and I just assumed like, oh, you put them in like an industrial strength type of acid, eventually the body will go away.
Yeah, you'd think so. I guess you're probably safer putting them in water and waiting, but I don't know.
Well, luckily I'll never know.
Luckily, knock on wood, we'll never find out.
Yeah.
So police arrested and charged Bunting, Wagner, Vlasakis, and Mark Hayden on May 21st, 1999 for the murders. In questioning, James decides to free flow all information in the hopes that, this is Jamie, in the hopes that his compliance will give him a shorter sentence. So he directs police to the Waterloo Corner Road house, instructs them to look in the garden, and that is where they find the corpses of Ray Davies and Suzanne Allen, two of the early murder victims. The trial of Bunting and Wagner lasted almost 12 months, which is the longest in the history of South Australia. And during the trial, Justin Brian Ross Martin determined Bunting to be the ringleader, which at least that was correct, and sentenced him to 11 consecutive terms of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Wagner was sentenced to 10 consecutive terms under the same conditions, and at his sentencing, he stated, "Pedophiles were doing terrible things to children. The authorities didn't do anything about it. I decided to take action. I took that action. Thank you."
Oh, brava.
Thank you. Brava.
Thank you
for him. Snaps for you, Wagner.
Wow.
So in December 2003, Bunting, Wagner, and Vlasakis were convicted. And in 2011, there's a pretty famous murder. I'm sorry, Jesus, this is a famous murder. There's a pretty famous movie about the murders called Snowtown, which has won a lot of Australian awards. It's apparently, I haven't seen it, but it's apparently very dark and heavy. So it's apparently a really well done true crime documentary, but is also like pretty hard to watch. So just a fair warning if you want to check it out. I think I was not in the right, I considered it, but I was not in the right headspace. So I bookmarked it for a future time when maybe I'm better equipped to handle that. But a final note is that some people in Snowtown have tried to profit off the story with merchandise, which is pretty icky and I don't think a cute look. And there's basically, they sell these like barrels, like these like toy barrels with like a foot coming out of it and a dd coming out of it, and it says Snowtown in like cursive.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's not a cute look. I'm like super not into it.
So no.
I mean, I'm also the type who's not into like serial killer merchandise, because I'm like, that's not the point to me. I think that's the opposite of the point. But yeah,
or like
I'm not into it.
I mean, just in terms of like, you never know who you're around and they could have
completely
been affected by it, and now
you're like re-traumatizing people or triggering people. It's just not good in my opinion. But that is the story of the Snowtown murders. And I'm so sorry it was so all over the place. It's just like, that's why I was so like frantic about getting everything right, because it was so many names and two different Elizabeths, and oh my goodness.
You did the best you could with what you got, and you did pretty darn good.
Well, thank you.
I feel like we should name this episode the Migraine episode, because
it is fully a migraine
between
episode.
This and QAnon, I mean, good fucking luck. If you were hoping for an easy, digestible episode, try next week.
Yeah, hopefully we'll both like fucking chill out next week. We'll see. I mean, we started this, oh God, like right after I ate like a late breakfast, and now the sun is down and it's like 7:00, and man, oh man, do I have what I'm now recognizing must be a migraine, because I don't know what else it could be.
Very much am looking forward to reporting on a much easier, simpler, one episode is all it takes story next week. So.
And I do recognize the irony in that, like, we are choosing to do this and do it to you. Listen, but we also want
to make sure that when we're reporting on things, we're doing it right. So
we're
sorry, but also
we're sorry if you are joining us in our migraine
We're
world.
sorry if like here's what I'm really sorry about. If you're on a road trip with someone who loves listening to And That's Why We Drink, and they're like, just one episode, and then we can do whatever you want, and you got stuck here for like 3 hours, and now you're at your destination, or like you got there and there's still a half an hour of this left, and you're like, I gotta fucking listen to that show again when I get in my car.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. Well, we're over 4 hours, so we should probably say bye and go.
Good riddance.
I need some water or like some wine. Actually, what am I talking about? Water. What's wrong with me?
I need a nap is what I need.
A nap and a big bag of booze.
We appreciate you. Thank you to everyone that sat through all of this. And that's it. Goodbye. And
goodbye. That's
why
we
drink.
Also, we're sorry.
We're sorry.